Chapter 907. After leaving the Worldwide Academy, Yi Xian did not return to Fu Wenzong. Instead, he went to the Azura Hell. It was a pity that Yi Ling was still in closed-door cultivation. Yi Xian came to a spacious hall. He sat cross-legged on the floor, took out a talisman paper and a brush, and started drawing. A critical talisman. He was not drawing it for himself, but for Yi Ling. In Yi Ling's hands, this talisman would be extremely destructive. At this moment, Lian Xian appeared beside Yi Xian. She glanced at Yi Xian and asked, "Do you really want to intervene?" Yi Xian put down the brush in his hand and smiled. "What's wrong?" Lian Xian shook her head. "This is not something you can intervene in." Yi Xian was silent. Lian Xian continued, "I think this is not a simple matter. First, the Emperor of the Dead can't break the seal by himself. This means that someone is helping him, and this person is not an ordinary person." She looked at Yi Xian and said, "If Yi Ling can't handle it, it's useless for you to intervene." Yi Xian nodded. "I know, but I still have to do my best." Lian Xian sighed and did not say anything else. She knew that as long as Yi Ling was involved, Yi Xian would never give up, even if he knew he would die. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "You reminded me." Lian Xian looked at Yi Xian and asked, "What do you mean?" Yi Xian said softly, "I have to find more helpers." Lian Xian nodded slightly. "You are a divine talisman master. If you are willing to draw 7-colored talismans for others, there should be strong people willing to help you. However, it's useless to find ordinary people. You can only find the other few of the 6 powerhouses." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Among the 6 powerhouses, Li Mubai can't leave the city, so he has to give up. Then, the only ones left are the female headmaster, Human Snow, the crippled lady, and the tomb keeper." As he spoke, he looked at Lian Xian and asked, "Out of these 4, which one is easier to talk to?" Lian Xian said, "None of them are easy to talk to." Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Xian suddenly said, "Let's look for that Human Snow." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" Lian Xian said, "Back then, I followed my master and saw this person. I've met her a few times. She might be of some use." Yi Xian nodded, "All right, then let's go find this human world snow." After saying that, he began to focus on drawing the critical rune. About 6 hours later, he finished drawing the critical symbol and handed it over to Ah Tian. Because Yi Ling was still in seclusion, he had no way to see Yi Ling. After giving the talisman to Tian, Yi Xian set off for the sky land. Because the human snow was in the firmament. Amidst the clouds, Yi Xian flew on his sword. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Miss Lian Xian, among these 6 experts, who is stronger?" After a moment of silence, Lian Xian said, "In the 5th dimension, under my master, there were these 6 experts. As for who is stronger, I don't know because they haven't fought each other. However, all 6 of them can easily enter the 3-dimensional space." Yi Xian asked, "Back then, the prophet could enter the 4-dimensional space?" Lian Xian said, "I don't know." Yi Xian was stunned, then said, "How can you not know?" Lian Xian said, "Back then, Master's true strength was a mystery because he rarely fought. Even when he didn't use his full strength. Therefore, we don't know how strong he was. Just like the woman behind you, do you know how strong this person is?" Yi Xian shook his head. He really didn't know how strong the woman in the plain dress was because she killed everyone with 1 sword. She had never used 2 swords. Lian Xian said again, "Actually, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. In fact, if the woman in the plain dress and master meet, it will definitely be very interesting." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Let them fight?" Lian Xian said, "It's not impossible. If they fight, it will definitely be very interesting." Yi Xian laughed. "In Miss Lian Xian's opinion, the woman in the plain dress is stronger than the 6 experts?" Lian Xian said softly, "Definitely stronger." Also, let me tell you, other than Master, the strongest were not the 6 experts, but Xiao Ta and us sisters. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Xiao Ta added you guys? Lian Xian said, yes, with the 9 Dao laws gathered, plus Xiao Ta at his peak, the 6 experts had to step aside. The reason why Xiao Ta could escape back then, other than the fact that Headmaster and Zhang Wenxiu went easy on him, the real reason was that the Dao laws and Xiao Ta were strong enough, so no one dared to fight with us. Unfortunately, after Xiao Ta came to the 4-dimensional universe, he was too arrogant. Sigh, this idiot. In Yi Xian's body, the prison pagoda trembled slightly, as if it was expressing something. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He had to say, if Xiao Ta had kept a low profile back then, he wouldn't have been almost destroyed. Lian Xian said again, Yanjia and the rest are already looking for the other Dao laws. When the time comes, they will look for you. At that time, you have to think of a way to restore Xiao Ta's spiritual intelligence. When that time comes, even if you face the 6 experts, you will still be able to fight. Yi Xian said in a low voice, after Xiao Ta recovers his spiritual intelligence, will he kill me first? Lian Xian said, probably not. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? Previously, you told me that we can't let Xiao Ta recover his spiritual intelligence. Lian Xian said, firstly, this pagoda seems to be very close to you, and this closeness is a little abnormal. Secondly, it doesn't dare to do anything to you because of the woman in the plain dress behind you. With her around, even if it was given 100 guts, it still wouldn't dare to do anything to you. The woman in the plain dress. Yi Xian said softly, I don't know where she is now. Is she still in the 4-dimensional universe, or has she already come to the 5-dimensional universe? Lian Xian said, she seems to be doing something. No matter what, you still have to rely on yourself. Yi Xian nodded. Indeed, people could only rely on themselves. Lian Xian continued, the current 5-dimensional universe is no longer the one I knew. After the master disappeared, everyone coveted the bookstore he left behind. Now, no one has made a move on you because they are waiting for you to fight against the Worldwide Academy. Therefore, your situation is more serious than Yiling's. As long as she doesn't want to die and doesn't defend that place, no one can kill her. But you are different. Once those people make a move on you, you basically have no way to survive. Yi Xian said in a low voice, do the 6 powerhouses also want that bookstore? Lian Xian said, first, they definitely want it. If it weren't for you, Yi Ling wouldn't have returned Xiao Ta to you. In fact, she might have even killed you to silence you. Also, you have to remember that this world doesn't only have the 6 powerhouses. There are also some very low-key aristocratic families and sects, especially some reclusive aristocratic families and some powerful sections. These forces aren't something you can contend against alone. Therefore, since you have this pagoda, you are destined to have many, many enemies. Yi Xian nodded slightly. I understand. Lian Xian said, they are all waiting now. This is an opportunity for you, an opportunity to become stronger. Yi Xian nodded. In fact, when he was in the 4-dimensional universe, he was already mentally prepared. With Xiao Ta around, he could forget about living a peaceful life. At this moment, Lian Xian suddenly said, we're here. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked up into the distance. In his line of sight, there was a door floating in the clouds. The door was hundreds of feet tall and stood tall in the clouds, exuding an ancient aura. Yi Xian said softly, this is the firmament land? Lian Xian said, yes. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Yi Xian nodded slightly and flew over. As soon as he arrived in front of the door, an old man suddenly appeared in front of him. The old man looked at Yi Xian with an unfriendly expression. Who are you? Yi Xian cupped his fists. I'm Fu Wenzong, Yi Xian. I'm here to see Senior Human Shui. Yi Xian. The old man sized up Yi Xian. You're Yi Xian. Divine Talisman Master? Yi Xian nodded. That's me. Hearing this, the old man's expression softened. So it's Divine Talisman Master Yi. Divine Talisman Master Yi, my lady isn't in the firmament land. Although Yi Xian was a junior in front of him, he didn't dare to be careless because Yi Xian was a Divine Talisman Master. A Divine Talisman Master's status was just a little lower than the 6 powerhouses. Hearing the old man's words, Yi Xian frowned. She's not in the firmament land? The old man nodded. Yes. Yi Xian asked, then where is she? The old man shook his head. My lady hasn't returned for many years. And she hasn't contacted us, so we don't know where she is. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, the old man said, May I know why Divine Talisman Master Yi is looking for my lady? Yi Xian smiled. I just want to pay a visit. The old man nodded and smiled. How about this? If my lady comes back, I'll send someone to Fu Wenzong to inform Divine Talisman Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded. Then it'll be troublesome. The old man smiled. It's a small matter. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first. When Senior Shui comes back, I'll pay a visit. With that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. The old man looked at the sword light in the distance and said softly, to be a Divine Talisman Master at such a young age, he really is a genius. In the distant horizon, Yi Xian said in a low voice, Are we going to look for the master of the 5th dimension, the crippled girl? Lian Xian said, I'm afraid you won't be able to find her. Yi Xian was about to speak when the space in front of him suddenly trembled. Soon, his expression changed. In the next moment, he disappeared into the horizon. Something happened in the Azura Hell. Azura Hell. On this day, in the Azura Hell, countless vengeful spirits and ghosts roared. A powerful aura surged out like a volcanic eruption. All the powerhouses in the Azura Hell were shocked. At the entrance of the Azura Hell, Ah Tian and Ah Di had grave expressions. The power coming from the Azura Hell was too strong. At this moment, the two suddenly turned around. Not far away, a little girl slowly walked over. It was Yi Ling. Ah Tian hurriedly walked in front of Yi Ling and said in a low voice, Master, I'm afraid the Emperor of the Dead is about to completely break the seal. Yi Ling looked at the entrance of the Azura Hell. Everyone, retreat. Ah Tian looked at Yi Ling. Yi Ling said softly, Don't talk nonsense, make everyone retreat. Ah Tian said in a low voice, Master, us brothers should stay. Yi Ling looked at Ah Tian. All of you, leave immediately. Ah Tian wanted to say something, but Yi Ling's expression suddenly turned cold. Don't make me angry. Ah Tian hesitated and wanted to say something, but Yi Ling said softly, I'm alone, I have no scruples, I'm more confident. Hearing this, Ah Tian was silent for a moment, then nodded. All right. With that, he and Ah Di withdrew all the powerhouses in the Azura Hell. At the entrance of the Azura Hell, Yi Ling looked at the little wooden doll in her hand. After a long time, she put it away and jumped into the Azura Hell. End of this chapter. Chapter 908. As soon as Yi Ling entered Hell, countless vengeful spirits and evil spirits charged at her. Yi Ling was expressionless. She flicked her sleeves. Boom! Before the vengeful spirits and evil spirits could get close to her, they exploded and turned into nothingness. The remaining vengeful spirits and evil spirits quickly retreated and did not dare to get close. Yi Xian looked into the distance. In the black ancient city at the end of his vision, a powerful aura rippled out like water. The aura grew stronger and stronger with each wave. It was extremely terrifying. At that moment, an explosion suddenly sounded in the black ancient city. Then, a middle-aged man slowly floated up from the city. Countless vengeful spirits circled around the man. This man was the Emperor of the Dead. Yi Ling looked at the Emperor of the Dead calmly. In the distance, the Emperor of the Dead took a deep breath greedily and an intoxicated expression appeared on his face. The taste of freedom. As he spoke, he suddenly looked at Yi Ling and smiled. I heard that you are the last emperor in the human world. Yi Ling was expressionless. You talk a lot of nonsense. As soon as she spoke, she opened her palm and a blood-red sickle suddenly appeared in her hand. In the next moment, she disappeared from the scene. In the gray sky, a blood-red light flashed. Wherever the blood-red light passed, the space exploded inch by inch and was annihilated. In the end, it turned into nothingness and disappeared completely. It was extremely terrifying. In the distance, the corners of the undead emperor's mouth lifted slightly. Come, let me see if you, the great emperor, or I, the great emperor, is stronger. As he spoke, he faced his palm down and raised it gently. Yellow spring ashes. As soon as he finished speaking, a dark green flame poured down from the sky. Everywhere the flame passed, space was instantly incinerated into ashes. Below, Yi Ling suddenly stopped. She raised her head and looked at the dark green flame. She opened her palm and the blood-red sickle in her hand shot into the sky with a blood-red radiance. It slashed at the flame. Boom! The entire hell suddenly shook. Countless flames and blood-red radiance rippled in all directions. In an instant, the vengeful spirits and evil spirits in the scene fled in all directions, wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. Below, the undead emperor looked at Yi Ling. Your ancestors are all inferior to you. Yi Ling was expressionless. She scanned the surroundings. Why? Are they not coming out? The undead emperor looked straight at Yi Ling. I alone am enough to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, a black spear suddenly appeared in his hand. In the next moment, he transformed into a ray of black light that shot out explosively. Countless vengeful spirits and evil spirits were attached to the tip of the spear in his hand. These spirits and evil spirits had hideous expressions and were howling madly. In the distance, a wisp of disdain arose on the corners of Yi Ling's mouth. You? As soon as she finished speaking, she slashed forward with the blood-red sickle in her hand. Chi! A sharp sound of tearing resounded abruptly. Rumble! A shocking explosion suddenly resounded, and the entire hell trembled violently as if an earthquake was occurring. It was extremely shocking. At this moment, the undead emperor had already returned to his original position, while Yi Ling had not taken a single step back. The undead emperor gazed at Yi Ling, and his expression became even more solemn. In the distance, Yi Ling suddenly closed her eyes slowly, and then she vanished into thin air. Seeing this, the undead emperor narrowed his eyes. Triple-dimensional space. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished as well. As soon as the two of them vanished, the entire hell suddenly quieted down. Just like that, after an unknown period of time, the space that the two of them were in suddenly split open. Then, the two of them once again appeared in this hell. At this moment, the undead emperor's face was slightly pale. At the same time, his expression was even more solemn than before. In the distance, Yi Ling suddenly grasped the blood-red sickle in her hand with both hands. She slowly raised the sickle, and when the sickle was above her head, she suddenly roared, "Endless slash!" As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished into thin air. Chi! In the face of this sickle, the space here was even more fragile than a piece of paper. In the distance, the undead emperor's expression changed. He did not dare to be careless, and the spear in his right hand stabbed forward. 100 ghosts attack. As the spear stabbed forward, countless vengeful spirits and evil ghosts rushed out from the spear. However, as soon as these spirits and evil ghosts got close to Yi Ling's sickle, they instantly turned into ashes. The sickle arrived. Boom! The spear in the undead emperor's hand trembled violently, and it directly cracked, while he instantly retreated. However, at this moment, Yi Ling's sickle once again slashed at his spear. Boom! The spear instantly exploded, but this was not the end. Before the first slash ended, another slash arrived, and it was continuous. In the battlefield, the undead emperor frantically retreated. In the process of retreating, a pitch-black light screen had unknowingly appeared around him, and it was this light screen that had barely blocked Yiling's sickle. However, at this moment, the light screen had already cracked into the shape of a spider's web. At this moment, as Yiling slashed down with her sickle, the undead emperor's black light screen instantly exploded, and Yiling's sickle pierced straight through, heading straight for the undead emperor's head. At this moment, the undead emperor suddenly raised both his hands. Dark extermination. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of black light suddenly engulfed him and Yiling. After 3 breaths, the ray of black light suddenly disappeared. At this moment, Yiling had already retreated hundreds of feet away, and a faint black aura appeared on the sickle in her hand. This black aura was slowly corroding the sickle. In the distance, the undead emperor suddenly took a step forward, and a spirit lamp suddenly flew out from between his eyebrows. He pointed at Yiling from afar. Spirit lamp burns the soul. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit lamp turned into a ray of green light and appeared above Yiling's head. In the next moment, a column of eerie white flames poured down. If one was burned by this flame, their soul would instantly turn into nothingness. Below, Yiling was expressionless. When the flame was half a foot above her head, a 7-colored light pillar suddenly shot up into the sky, and within the 7-colored light pillar was a talisman. Critical talisman. Boom! The eerie white flames were directly destroyed by the power released by the critical talisman, and the spirit lamp also became illusory at this moment. Seeing this, the undead emperor hurriedly put away the spirit lamp, and looked at Yiling, a 7-colored talisman. In this world, there is almost no chaotic aura. How can you have a 7-colored talisman? A 7-colored talisman in the hands of an expert of Yiling's level was extremely terrifying. Yiling looked at the undead emperor. My brother drew it for me. The undead emperor narrowed his eyes. Your brother? Yiling did not waste any time. She stretched out her hand, and the 7-colored talisman flew directly to her scythe. In an instant, the black aura on the scythe was directly shattered by the power of the critical talisman. The scythe returned to normal. At this moment, Yiling suddenly disappeared. In the distance, the undead emperor's pupils shrank, and he clenched his fists. Darkness extermination. A black light suddenly engulfed him and Yiling, but in the next moment, the black light exploded, and the undead emperor frantically retreated. At this moment, the blood-red scythe in Yiling's hands suddenly flew out. Infinity Edge. The moment the blood-red scythe flew out, it immediately became illusory, as if it did not exist in this space. In the distance, the undead emperor's expression changed, and he clasped his hands together. Azura's wrath. As soon as he said this, a powerful force suddenly swept out from his body. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the space within a radius of hundreds of thousands of feet began to boil like boiling water. It was extremely shocking. At this moment, Yiling suddenly roared. Infinity Break. The blood-red scythe in her hands suddenly exploded. Rumble. The surrounding space directly exploded, and at the same time, a figure frantically retreated. This person was the undead emperor. After retreating a few thousand feet, the undead emperor finally stopped, and at this moment, one of his arms had disappeared. In the distance, Yiling stretched out her hand. Gather. As soon as she said this, a blood-red scythe once again appeared in her hand. Yiling slowly walked towards the undead emperor with the scythe in her hand. At this moment, a light laugh suddenly rang out, worthy of being the strongest great emperor in the 5th dimension. Powerful, truly powerful. Yiling turned her head, and not far from her right, stood a woman in a red dress. Yiling stared at the woman in the red dress. Devouring Spirit Clan. The woman in the red dress said with a smile, good eyesight, you actually saw through my origin at a glance. Yiling looked at the undead emperor. It turns out that the Devouring Spirit Clan is secretly helping you. The undead emperor laughed. You didn't expect this? Yiling pointed the scythe at the woman in the red dress. Come, let me see what the Devouring Spirit Clan is capable of. The woman in the red dress slightly raised the corner of her mouth. I won't let you down. As soon as she said this, she gently clapped her hands, and around Yiling, 4 white-haired old men in white robes suddenly appeared, and under their feet, there were 4 strange light arrays. At this moment, Yi Ling directly attacked, and the scythe in her hand instantly flew out. Obviously, she knew that the devouring spirit clan was activating the array, so she did not wait for the array to form, but directly attacked. Unfortunately, the moment she attacked, 4 rays of white light suddenly shone on her, and her scythe also stopped at this moment. At this time, the 4 white-haired old men began to quickly chant incantations, and the surrounding space trembled violently. Countless tiny white runes appeared out of thin air, and Yi Ling, who was in the center, felt her aura suddenly plummet. Yi Ling's eyes narrowed slightly, and she suddenly pressed her hands forward. Rumble. A powerful force swept out in front of her, but the next moment, a white forbidden word suddenly appeared above her head, and then the force disappeared without a trace. Yi Ling's expression was calm, and she began to slowly clench her hands, and the space she was in began to directly explode. At this time, the woman in the red dress in the distance suddenly said, "Hold her, don't let her break the boundary and enter the triple-dimensional space." As soon as her voice fell, the undead emperor directly rushed in front of Yi Ling, and a black light submerged him and Yi Ling. After a few breaths, the black light suddenly exploded. Rumble. The surrounding space trembled violently, and the undead emperor was directly sent flying. But at this time, countless white light beams like iron chains shackled Yi Ling, and at this time, Yi Ling's aura was now no different from that of an ordinary person. In the distance, the woman in the red dress smiled slightly. Forbidden Spirit Array. This array was created by my ancestors based on the Prophet's 6 paths of truth. This formation isn't activated by just 4 people. In my clan, there are 1,200 super experts working together to activate this formation. Not only are these 1,200 light beams suppressing your realm, but they're also sealing the spiritual chi around your body. Once you're sealed, you won't be able to use spatial techniques, divine abilities, forbidden techniques, Tao laws, nomological techniques, or your physical and soul strength. As she said that, the corners of her mouth slightly curled up. "Come, let us send this world's last great emperor on his way." As soon as her voice fell, the 1,200 light beams suddenly burned. Inside the array, Yi Ling slowly closed her eyes, and at this moment, the scene in Qingqing surfaced in her mind. That young man, the young man who valued her more than his own life. Yi Xian. Yi Ling's mouth suddenly curled up into a smile. "In this life, I am fortunate to have met you. I wish to be your sister in my next life." At this time, suddenly, a roar suddenly came from the horizon. "Who the hell dares to touch my sister?" P.S. The annual meeting is over. Without a doubt, in terms of appearance, I am number 1. Chapter 909. Who the hell dares to touch my sister? As the voice rang out, the sky in the distance was suddenly torn apart by a sword radiance. In the next moment, the sword radiance dissipated and a man appeared in front of Yi Ling. The man was Yi Xian. Yi Xian had a ferocious look on his face and exuded a violent aura. Not far away, the woman in the red dress sized up Yi Xian and shook her head with a smile. Pointless sacrifice. Stupid. Yi Xian ignored the woman in the red dress and turned to look at Yi Ling, who was imprisoned by the white light. Yi Ling was also looking at him. Why? Yi Xian held the executing heaven sword tightly in his hand and did not speak. Yi Ling shook his head. Let's go. Avenge me in the future. Yi Xian grinned. I don't want to care about the future. I only want to care about the present. Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. You will die. Yi Xian smiled. I am very afraid of death, but for you, I am not afraid of death. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed forward. Boom! A sword radiance fiercely slashed the light rays. However, the sword radiance exploded and the powerful force instantly blasted him hundreds of feet away. At this moment, the woman in the red dress suddenly laughed. Ignorant. Do you know this formation? At this moment, Yi Xian rushed out again. The woman in the red dress had no intention of stopping him, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Soon, Yi Xian slashed the light rays again. This time, he directly used the immeasurable sword. Boom! The sword radiance shattered and Yi Xian flew out again. In the distance, after Yi Xian stopped, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and was about to attack again. At this moment, Yi Ling suddenly shook his head. Enough. Yi Xian rushed out again. Boom! A ray of light exploded, and then Yi Xian was blasted flying once more. This time, he was blasted 3 kilometers away. Moreover, his entire right arm had split apart. Yi Xian wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth, and he was just about to attack again when Yi Ling suddenly shouted, "Enough!" Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling and Yi Ling stared at Yi Xian. That's really enough. At this moment, all of her vitality was being devoured by the formation. Ah! Yi Xian raised his head and roared as he charged forward with his sword. Not too far away, the dead emperor was about to attack. However, the woman in a red dress raised her hand and stopped the dead emperor. The undead emperor looked at the red-dressed woman. The red-dressed woman smiled and said, "Don't you think this scene is very interesting?" The undead emperor gazed at Yi Xian. It was obvious that Yi Xian had failed again. Yi Xian was blasted flying again, and he suffered the backlash of the formation as well. Just like that, Yi Xian tried again and again, but he failed every single time. By this time, he was already covered in cuts and bruises, because the counterforce of the formation was really too strong. Right when Yi Xian was about to charge forward again, Yi Ling suddenly roared furiously, "Big brother!" Yi Xian stopped and looked at Yi Ling with a slightly stunned expression. Big brother. He hadn't heard such a form of address for quite some time. Yi Ling gazed at Yi Xian while 2 streams of clear tears flowed down her cheeks, and her voice was trembling slightly, "Big brother, that's enough. It's really enough. Don't attack again." "Why not?" Right at this moment, the red-dressed woman suddenly smiled and said, "I think he can do it." Yi Ling suddenly turned to look at the red-dressed woman and said fiercely, "You're courting death." She clenched her fists, but she couldn't use any power. Even if she wanted to burn her soul, she couldn't. She was locked. Haha. The red-dressed woman suddenly laughed, "Shura Empress, if you have the ability, come out and hit me." "Come out." Yi Ling stared at the red-dressed woman. At this moment, her entire face was distorted. The woman in a red dress was just about to say something when Yi Xian suddenly charged towards Yi Ling. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of the woman's mouth when she witnessed this scene. She wasn't arrogant, but she had enough confidence. This formation was the top formation of the Devouring Spirit clan. It could be said that even among all the formations in the entire 5th dimension, it could be ranked in the top 5. Moreover, in order to activate this formation, the Devouring Spirit clan had sent more than 1,200 top experts. Of course, the Emperor of the Dead was helping to restrain Yi Ling, otherwise, this formation alone wouldn't be able to trap an expert like Yi Ling. As for Yi Xian, he couldn't threaten this formation at all. However, at this moment, the Emperor of the Dead roared, "Stop him." The red-dressed woman's expression also changed. The moment Yi Xian rushed in front of Yi Ling, Yi Xian's entire body was covered in blood. Most importantly, Yi Xian's aura had reached an unimaginable level. Bloodline power. This time, Yi Xian activated the bloodline power because he knew that if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to save Yi Xian. Not only did he activate the bloodline power, but he also used the Space Dao Law and the Executing Heaven Sword. As for the consequences, he didn't care about them at all. At this moment, the red-dressed woman and the Emperor of the Dead couldn't stop him in time. They could only watch as Yi Xian slashed at the light beams. Boom! An explosion resounded abruptly, and then the beams of light cracked apart under the astounded gazes of the undead Emperor and the woman in a red dress. Meanwhile, Yi Ling suddenly roared furiously as she clenched her fists tightly, and then a powerful force swept out from within her. In an instant, the beams of light were obliterated. However, Yi Xian was also sent flying. Just as he was about to hit the ground, a hand caught him. It was Yi Ling. At this moment, Yi Ling's entire body emitted an extremely violent aura. Her eyes were as sharp as a blade, sending chills down one's spine. However, when she looked at Yi Xian in her arms, her gaze instantly softened. Yi Xian was covered in blood. The blood in his body was boiling like magma. His aura also skyrocketed at this moment. Yi Ling placed her right hand lightly on the center of Yi Xian's eyebrows, and a powerful force instantly enveloped Yi Xian. However, she wasn't able to suppress Yi Xian's bloodline easily this time. Yi Xian's bloodline had improved along with his strength, and Yi Xian's current strength couldn't be compared to before. Moreover, he'd activated his bloodline in a fit of rage. Therefore, his bloodline power was extremely powerful now, and even Yi Ling wasn't able to suppress it for a time. Seeing that Yi Xian was about to completely enter a state of madness, Yi Ling suddenly said in a trembling voice, "Brother." Hearing Yi Ling's words, Yi Xian's body suddenly trembled slightly. The next moment, he suddenly grabbed Yi Ling's throat. Yi Ling's expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to urge her power, she was afraid that she'd hurt Yi Xian, so she quickly stopped. Yi Xian didn't hold back. If it wasn't for Yi Ling's powerful strength, her neck would have been broken. Yi Ling gently grabbed Yi Xian's hand. "Brother," Yi Xian suddenly frowned. His entire body began to tremble violently, as if he was suffering from some kind of pain. His facial features were severely distorted. He was struggling. He was fighting against his bloodline, which was why he was in pain. If he didn't fight against his bloodline, he wouldn't be in pain at all. Seeing that Yi Xian was in so much pain, Yi Ling slowly closed her eyes. She gently held Yi Xian's cheeks with both hands and said softly, "Brother." At this moment, Yi Ling also felt like her heart was being cut by a knife. She didn't dare to suppress Yi Xian's bloodline with all her strength, because she was afraid that something would happen. But she knew that if Yi Xian didn't wake up, it was possible that his spiritual consciousness would be completely eroded by the bloodline slaughter. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly let out a furious roar and punched himself in the chest. Boom! Yi Xian flew out directly and finally fell heavily to the ground. At this time, the blood color in his eyes dimmed a lot. Although he hadn't fully recovered, he was much better than before. At this time, Yi Ling appeared in front of Yi Xian. When she saw Yi Xian's current state, her expression instantly turned ferocious. At this moment, Yi Xian could be said to be in an extremely miserable state. His entire body was cracked, especially his chest, where there was a huge dent. It could be said that it was too horrible to look at. Yi Ling suddenly turned to look at the woman in the red dress not far away. The woman in the red dress stared at Yi Ling. "Stop her." Yi Ling suddenly said ferociously, "Die." As soon as she spoke, a monstrous evil aura swept out from her body. At the same time, she directly turned into a ray of black light and rushed towards the woman in the red dress. Everywhere she passed, the space instantly exploded. In the distance, the woman in the red dress looked at the dead emperor who didn't move. "What are you waiting for?" The dead emperor fell silent for a moment and then rushed towards Yi Ling. In the end, he still decided to join forces with the woman in the red dress. Because he knew that he couldn't kill Yi Ling on his own. However, he just arrived in front of Yi Ling when he was blasted away by a single punch from Yi Ling. On the other hand, Yi Ling didn't pay any attention to the dead emperor, and she charged towards the woman in the red dress instead. Obviously, Yi Ling intended to kill the woman in the red dress. The woman in the red dress had a calm expression on her face. When Yi Ling arrived in front of her, a thick blue barrier of light suddenly appeared in front of her, and Yi Ling slammed her fist against the blue barrier of light. Rumble. The entire blue barrier of light exploded and transformed into nothingness. Right at this moment, a red blade suddenly slashed towards Yi Ling. Yi Ling didn't dodge, and she just slammed her fist forward. Bang! The red blade exploded, and the powerful force contained within Yiling's fist caused the woman in the red dress to retreat repeatedly. Yiling took a step forward with a ferocious expression on her face, and then she raised her hands. Shatter. As soon as she raised her hands, the space in an area of over 30 kilometers in front of her was actually lifted up, and it instantly enveloped the woman in the red dress. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the space in front of Yiling turned pitch black. Suddenly, the pitch-black space in front of her was torn apart, and then an enormous red palm that was over 300 m long suddenly stretched out from within it and pressed down towards Yiling. As soon as the red palm appeared here, the space in the surroundings started to seethe violently as if it couldn't endure it. It was an extremely shocking sight. Yiling stomped her right foot lightly against the ground and vanished on the spot. In the next moment, a ray of black light shot through the surroundings like a shooting star, and it didn't take long for the ray of black light to collide with the red palm. Rumble. The red palm instantly exploded apart. Meanwhile, Yiling casually waved her hand, and the shattered palm was instantly obliterated. But at this moment, the woman in the red dress had vanished. Not only was she gone, but the Emperor of the Dead had vanished as well. Yiling returned to Yi Xian's side. When she saw Yi Xian, who was still half dead, Yiling slowly closed her eyes. After a moment of silence, she suddenly opened her eyes and roared furiously, devouring Spirit Clan. Rumble. Hell started to be obliterated inch by inch. Meanwhile, Yiling carried Yi Xian on her back, and she walked step by step towards the distance. Big brother, your blood won't be shed in vain. Just watch. Little sister will slaughter the devouring Spirit Clan today. Chapter 9-10. Yiling carried Yi Xian away from the shattered hell. Tian and Di suddenly appeared in front of Yiling. When they saw Yiling, they were shocked. They had never seen Yiling so angry. Yiling was expressionless. Pass down my order. Gather all the people of the Shura clan and destroy the devouring Spirit Clan. Tian hesitated for a moment and then said, Master, the hell is shattered. Countless evil spirits have escaped. Yiling suddenly looked at Tian and a wave of hostility locked onto Tian. You don't understand? Tian was shocked and quickly said, Yes, Master. After saying that, he quickly retreated. On the side, Di bowed and did not dare to speak. Yiling gently put Yi Xian down. When she looked at Yi Xian, her expression softened. At this time, Yi Xian's aura had calmed down. Under the treatment of the Spring of Life, his body was rapidly recovering. However, he was still not fully awake. Right at this moment, a group of golden-armored experts suddenly gathered in front of Yiling. There weren't many of them, only 100 of them, but every single one of them had an aura that was as deep as the sea, and they exuded an oppressive killing intent. The Shura Cavalry. The Shura Cavalry was famous in the past. Among all the Dao soldiers in the fifth dimension, the Shura Cavalry was ranked second, only inferior to the legendary God-burying cavalry. At this time, the 100 Shura Cavalry knelt on one knee. Master. Yiling looked at Di. Take care of him. Di seemed to want to say something but did not dare to say it. Yiling slowly closed her eyes. After a moment, she waved her right hand. In a distant palace, a sharp sound suddenly rang out. The next moment, a black light pierced through space and appeared directly in front of Yiling. Within the black light was a weapon. The tip of the weapon was shaped like a needle and was extremely sharp. There was a groove in the front and black blood flowed in the groove. At the end of the weapon was a dragon-shaped handle. Azura thrust. This was the #1 demon artifact of the Azura kingdom in the past. It was forged by the Azura king using the blood and souls of millions of people. No, that's not right, it was only a semi-finished product. This was because the Azura soul within this Azura thorn had yet to awaken. The Azura soul had formed, but it had yet to awaken. Thus, the Azura sting could only be ranked 5th among all the divine, ghost, and special weapons in the 5 latitudes. In front of it was the fourth-ranked artifact, the Heavenly Blade. This blade was Li Mubai's personal blade and was also the number 1 blade in the 5 dimensions. The third was the heaven-measuring ruler of the female headmaster. The ruler could measure the sky with a ruler and the world with a ruler. The second was the sword of eternal life in the land of eternal life. The person who obtained the sword would have eternal life. The first was the prison pagoda created by the prophet. It could imprison the sky, the earth, and the gods and demons of the heavens. It could seal the way, seal life, and seal the human immortals of the 10,000 worlds. The number 1 divine tool in the 5 dimensions. As for the Azura thorn, the prophet had said that if the Azura soul within the Azura thorn was awakened, it would be above the heaven blade and the heaven measuring ruler. However, because the Azura thorn was a demon artifact, its murderous aura was too strong. Thus, the prophet had temporarily suppressed this peerless demon artifact after obtaining the consent of the Azura king. However, he had also promised to create a new weapon spirit for the Azura thorn to make up for the loss of the Azura tribe. Unfortunately, the prophet had never returned. Now, this demon artifact had appeared in the world. Yi Ling slowly closed her eyes. The Azura thorn turned into a black light and disappeared into her palm. After a while, Yi Ling suddenly said, "Let's go." After saying that, she disappeared into the horizon with the hundreds of Azura iron horses. On this day, the entire 5 dimensions were shocked. The Azura Empress did not care about the Azura Hell anymore. Worldwide Academy. In the courtyard, Zhang Wenxiu was slowly sweeping the floor. She was very serious. Cultivating one's mind. This was something that she had to do every day when the prophet was still alive. The prophet had said that she was too impetuous and needed to cultivate her mind. Only then would she be able to go further. Although she did not like it, she insisted on doing it. Because he would not harm her. If there was anyone in this world that she could trust, it would be the prophet. At this moment, as if she had sensed something, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly looked up at the horizon. Her gaze was like a light that pierced through space. After a while, she frowned slightly. What does that woman want to do? A black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Wenxiu. The black-robed old man said in a deep voice, "Hell has been destroyed and the Emperor of the Dead has appeared. The ones secretly helping the Emperor of the Dead are the Devouring Soul clan." Hearing this, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly turned to look at the black-robed old man. The Devouring Soul clan? The black-robed old man nodded. How dare they? Zhang Wenxiu's expression instantly became ferocious. This trash clan dares to violate the agreement between them and Master. They really deserve to die. The black-robed old man was silent. In the past, the prophet actually wanted to destroy the Devouring Soul clan because the Devouring Soul clan could only be described as insane. In the past, the Devouring Soul clan not only wanted to dominate the 5th dimension, but they also wanted to destroy all living creatures except for the Devouring Soul clan. It could be said that before the prophet appeared, the Devouring Soul clan was the most powerful clan in this universe. They were so powerful that it was indescribable. And the patriarch of the Devouring Soul clan was even more invincible. In his view, other races were like ants except for the Devouring Soul clan. In order to make the Devouring Soul clan stronger, they directly began to devour the living creatures of the 5th dimension. It could be said that that was the darkest era of the 5th dimension. Unfortunately, a prophet appeared in that year. The prophet appeared out of nowhere and directly killed the patriarch of the Devouring Soul clan. Not only that, he also almost destroyed the entire Devouring Soul clan. Unfortunately, he did not do so in the end, because there were tens of millions of clansmen in the Devouring Spirit clan. He could not bear to kill all of them, so he signed an agreement with the new patriarch of the Devouring Spirit clan, which was that the Devouring Spirit clan would stay in the spiritual realm forever and would not be allowed to step out. Zhang Wenxiu did not expect that the Devouring Soul clan would violate the agreement and begin to appear in the 5th dimension. Moreover, they directly broke the Azura Hell. Once the Azura Hell was broken, those evil spirits would appear in the world. The fifth dimension would certainly be in chaos because of this. Of course, the most important thing was that the devouring soul clan had reappeared in the world. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, "Pass down the order." Speaking of this, she seemed to think of something and immediately shook her head. "It is useless for you to go. There is no one in this academy who can fight. I will go by myself." The black-robed old man said in a deep voice, "You want to intervene?" Zhang Wenxiu looked at the black-robed old man. "Otherwise, what do you think?" The black-robed old man said, "Shura Empress has already led the Shura Iron Cavalry to fight with the Devouring Soul Clan. We can sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then," Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, "and then reap the benefits?" The black-robed old man said in a deep voice, "This matter has nothing to do with us. We don't need to get involved." "Stupid." Zhang Wenxiu shook his head. "Have you ever thought about who the Devouring Soul Clan hates the most?" The black-robed old man looked at Zhang Wenxiu. "Us?" Zhang Wenxiu said, "Back then, teacher suppressed them and even killed their clan leader. But now, what is the situation of our worldwide academy now? With our current situation, do you think they will let us go?" The black-robed old man hesitated and then said, "We can let the Shura Empress fight them to the death. Zhang Wenxiu said coldly, "If we all hold this kind of thinking, we will find that when the Devouring Spirit Clan comes for us, who will help us?" Then, she looked at the black-robed old man. "Remember, people can be cruel and calculative, but don't be short-sighted. First, we have no grudge against the Shura Empress. Her death will do us no good. Second, teacher killed the patriarch of the Devouring Soul Clan and suppressed them for so many years. They must be resentful. They don't dare to go to teacher, but it doesn't mean they won't come to us. Third, the Devouring Soul Clan has just appeared and attacked the Shura Empress. What does this mean? It means they are very ambitious." The black-robed old man was silent. Zhang Wenxiu continued, "If they really kill the Shura Empress, it means they can kill the other 6 powerhouses. Therefore, at this time, we must stand by the Shura Empress side. If we watch the show with indifference, then the Shura Empress' fate will be our fate in the future." After saying that, she disappeared on the spot. Fu Wenzong. Shen Xinghe, who was in the hall, suddenly stood up and squinted. Something happened. Beside him, Lu Yong asked in a low voice, "What is it?" Shen Xinghe said, "The Devouring Soul Clan has appeared." Lu Yong's face changed. "They appeared?" Shen Xinghe nodded. "They unlocked the dead emperor's seal and almost killed the Shura Empress with the dead emperor. However, they were stopped by Little Master Ancestor. Now, Little Master Ancestor is seriously injured and is healing in the Shura clan. The Shura Empress has summoned the Shura nation's most precious ghost weapon, the Shura Thorn, and is leading the Shura Iron Cavalry to the Devouring Spirit Clan." Lu Yong asked, "What should we do?" Shen Xinghe was silent for a while and said, "Help." Lu Yong hesitated and said, "We have to play big." Shen Xinghe looked at Lu Yong. Lu Yong said softly, "In terms of emotions, Little Grandmaster is a person who values relationships and righteousness. He is not an ingrate. The future of the Talisman sect is in his hands, and we can all rest assured. Personally, the Little Ancestor is the only one in Fu Wenzong who can draw the 7-colored runes. We can all die, but he can't. For him, our whole sect can risk our lives. It's worth it." Shen Xinghe nodded slightly. "Take that thing and come with me." With that, the two of them disappeared from the main hall. Azura Hell. Not long after Yiling left, Yi Xian, who was lying on the ground, suddenly sat up and looked at Ah Tian. "Where is she?" Ah Tian hesitated and said, "She went to the Devouring Soul Clan. Master said he wants to slaughter the Devouring Soul Clan." Yi Xian was stunned. The next moment, he stood up and walked away with his sword. As if thinking of something, he suddenly turned to Ah Tian. "Help me spread the word that any expert who has reached the life and death realm can come to me and fight for me, and I will draw a perfect orange rune for him. And if any expert who has reached the Heaven's secret realm is willing to fight for me, I will draw a 7-colored rune for him." I will draw as many as they come. Ah Tian. P.S. I just came back from Sonya, so the update is late. Sorry. I have broken many people's chrysanthemums. None of the authors were spared. Chapter 9-11. Spiritual World. Yi Ling came to the entrance of the spiritual world with the 100 Shura cavalrymen. In fact, not many people knew about this place because the Devouring Soul tribe had not appeared in the world for a long time. It could be said that most people in this world did not know about the Devouring Soul tribe. The reason why Yi Ling knew the location of the spiritual world was because the Shura kingdom had fought with the Devouring Soul tribe in the past. The Shura kingdom had many detailed records about the Devouring Soul tribe. At the entrance, Yi Ling was expressionless. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared not far from Yi Ling. As soon as this old man appeared, the surrounding spiritual energy suddenly disappeared. Devouring Soul Tribe. The Devouring Soul tribe was blessed by nature. From birth, they were naturally attracted to spiritual energy. They could easily absorb spiritual energy. The old man looked at Yi Ling, Shura Empress. This is a misunderstanding. Right at this moment, Yi Ling suddenly vanished. In the next moment, a sharp sound resounded in the surroundings, and the Azura spike in Yi Ling's hand had stabbed into the old man's throat before he could react. As soon as it came into contact with the old man's blood, the Azura spike suddenly trembled violently, and then the old man's blood surged out like tidewater and converged into the Azura spike. The old man's eyes widened as he stared at Yi Ling. Yi Ling was expressionless. This is a misunderstanding. Then she opened her palm and the Azura thorn flew back into her hand. The old man was turned into a dried corpse. The Azura thorn could absorb spiritual energy. Yi Ling looked up at the entrance. There was a boundary around the entrance. Shura Empress said, "Go." The Azura thorn in her hand suddenly turned into a black light and flew out. The next moment, boom. The boundary around the entrance of the Devouring Soul tribe shattered. Yi Ling looked calm. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. As soon as she finished speaking, the Shura cavalrymen behind her rushed out. The cavalry rushed out like a flash flood, with the momentum to break the heavens. Shura cavalrymen. In the past, this cavalry had made countless forces tremble with fear. Because what this cavalry had done the most in the past was slaughtering cities. Wherever they went, not even the fowls and dogs were spared. Therefore, they were called Azuras. Right at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly swept over from the opposite side and pressed down on the Azura cavalry. Yi Ling had no intention of attacking. The Azura cavalry commander suddenly pulled out the scimitar at his waist and roared, "Azura's wrath." In the field, 100 people pulled out the scimitars from their waists and roared. Boom! A powerful aura surged into the sky like dozens of volcanoes erupting at the same time. Rumble. The space within a radius of hundreds of thousands of zhang trembled violently, and the pressure of the expert of the Devouring Spirit clan was directly crushed. The 100 people continued to rush forward with unstoppable momentum. At this moment, the space in front of the Azura cavalry suddenly split open. Shortly after, a white-haired old man walked out. The old man held a pure white mirror in his left hand and a blue staff in his right. The white-haired old man looked at the charging Azura cavalry expressionlessly. When the Azura cavalry was only a few dozen zhang away from him, he lightly pointed at them with the staff in his right hand. Stop! As his voice fell, the space in front of him suddenly trembled violently. Then, countless mysterious runes appeared in this space. At the same time, a mysterious force enveloped the Azura cavalry. Almost in an instant, the Azura cavalry slowed down. In the distance, Yi Ling still had no intention of attacking. The leader of the Azura cavalry suddenly bellowed, "Kill! Kill!" The 100 people roared in unison. Boom! A monstrous killing intent surged from the bodies of the 100 soldiers. This killing intent was like a hurricane, sweeping out in all directions. The surrounding space directly split open, and the powerful force forced the white-haired elder to retreat several feet. He frowned slightly. The strength of these Azura cavalrymen was a little beyond his expectations. At this time, the Azura cavalry commander suddenly pointed his scimitar at the white-haired old man. Kill! In an instant, the 100 people charged forward like a flash flood, and their momentum was invincible. The white-haired old man's eyes narrowed slightly. His right hand began to move swiftly as he muttered something. The space around him suddenly split open, and numerous pitch-black blades suddenly flew out from the cracks and slashed at the Azura cavalry. These blades were dense like a torrential rain, and they were so dense that it made one's scalp go numb. But the Azura cavalry had no intention of stopping. Charge! They charged faster and faster. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The surrounding space and the ground began to tremble violently, but the blades couldn't stop the Azura cavalry. They charged forward with irresistible force, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man's expressionless face revealed a trace of ferocity, and he suddenly stretched out his left hand. Defend! As soon as he spoke, the white mirror in his left hand suddenly flew out, and in the next moment, a 300 zhang long shield of light appeared in front of him. At this time, the 100 Azura cavalry arrived. Rumble! The shield of light trembled violently, and then it cracked. At this time, the leader of the Azura cavalry suddenly leaped up and slashed with both hands, Azura slash. The slash fell. Chi! The shield of light was directly torn apart. In the next moment, before the white-haired old man could react, the leader of the Azura cavalry slashed horizontally, and the white-haired old man's head flew into the air. The leader of the Azura cavalry waved his left hand, and the bloody head fell into his hand. He looked up into the distance, and his eyes were scarlet. Tu clan! As soon as he spoke, he took the lead and rushed forward. At this time, a light laugh sounded in the sky. Tu clan! Apart from the prophet, who in this world can slaughter my devouring spirit clan? As soon as the voice fell, a middle-aged man in a white robe appeared in the sky. The current clan leader of the Azura clan, Yuan Ling. Yuan Ling glanced at the Azura Iron Cavalry and smiled. Come on, let my devouring spirit clan experience the strength of the legendary Azura Iron Cavalry. As soon as he spoke, a roar suddenly came from a mountain in the distance. The next moment, a group of cavalrymen in white armor and holding golden spears suddenly rushed into the sky. The Tao soldiers of the Devouring Spirit clan, Devouring Spirit. There were not many of them, only about 100. However, the powerful aura they exuded was no weaker than that of the Azura cavalry. Soon, the two cavalrymen clashed. As soon as they began to fight, the sky fell and the earth cracked. They were equally matched. In the sky, Yuan Ling withdrew his gaze and looked at Yi Ling. He said with a smile, Shura Empress, if you do this, both sides will suffer. Obviously, the Devouring Spirit clan did not want to fight to the death with the Shura Empress. Yi Ling looked at Yuan Ling. I will use the rest of my life to destroy your Devouring Spirit clan. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned into a beam of light and shot out. In the battlefield, the space was torn by the Azura Thorn, and a powerful aura enveloped Yuan Ling. Yuan Ling looked at Yi Ling, who was rushing toward him, and sneered, Destroy my Devouring Spirit clan? You? Ridiculous. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his right sleeve. Rumble. The entire sky suddenly darkened, and an explosion resounded through the clouds like a thunderclap. In next to no time, a figure retreated explosively. This person was Yuan Ling. Yuan Ling looked at Yi Ling, who was not far away, and his eyes were solemn. Yi Ling's strength was a little beyond his expectations. At this time, a beam of light suddenly appeared in front of him. In the beam of light was the Azura Thorn. Yuan Ling did not take this stab head-on. Instead, his figure flashed and he retreated hundreds of feet away. However, as soon as he stopped, Yi Ling appeared in front of him again. The next moment, Yi Ling held the Azura Thorn in his right hand and stabbed it forward. Netherworld extermination. As soon as he finished speaking, the Azura thorn trembled violently, and a powerful force erupted from it. Yuan Ling narrowed his eyes, and he suddenly put his hands together. Void Spirit Seal. As soon as he finished speaking, an illusory seal suddenly appeared above his head, and the moment this seal appeared, Yi Ling's Azura thorn was directly blocked by an invisible force. Meanwhile, Yi Ling suddenly shouted furiously, "Break!" As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly spun the Azura thorn in her right hand. Bang! The seal above Yuan Ling's head exploded, and Yuan Ling was instantly blasted over 10 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, his chest suddenly split open and blood flowed out. Yuan Ling raised his head to look at Yi Ling. Needless to say, the Azura Empress who held the Azura thorn was truly too terrifying. Azura thorn. This was something that the Azura monarch had specially created for the members of the Azura tribe. It could perfectly fuse with the members of the Azura tribe, and only members of the Azura tribe could perfectly display the might of the Azura thorn. In the distance, Yi Ling walked slowly towards Yuan Ling. An extremely powerful aura emanated from her, and this aura was filled with slaughter and ruthlessness. Yuan Ling suddenly took a step forward, and then he slowly closed his eyes while he started to wave his hands lightly. In next to no time, the spiritual energy in the surroundings suddenly gathered towards him at an extremely fast speed, and then a white seal gradually appeared above his head. The Spirit Gather Seal. Meanwhile, Yuan Ling suddenly opened his eyes, and in the next moment, he charged forward. At this moment, countless layers of spirit energy enveloped him, and when he arrived in front of Yi Ling, the Spirit Convergence seal above his head suddenly erupted. Yi Ling didn't dodge. She just opened her palm, and the Azura thorn suddenly flew forward. Hiss! The sound of something tearing resounded. Rumble! Rumble! Numerous explosions resounded incessantly in the sky as a powerful storm of spiritual energy swept through the surroundings. Everywhere the storm passed, space was unable to endure its force and started to be obliterated inch by inch. Moreover, two figures were moving about incessantly amidst the storm. It was Yi Ling and Yuan Ling. After around 15 minutes passed, Yuan Ling was blasted flying. At this moment, one of Yuan Ling's arms had flown off. Yi Ling casually waved her hand, and the storm of spiritual energy vanished without a trace. She suddenly turned around to look towards her right, and then she made a grabbing motion with her right hand. The space in front of her exploded apart, and then a woman in a red dress appeared in her grasp. It was that woman in a red dress from the Azura Hell. The woman in a red dress stared fixedly at Yi Ling. A wisp of a ferocious smile arose on the corners of Yi Ling's mouth. "It's a piece of trash like you who forced my older brother to activate his bloodline. I'll consign you to eternal damnation." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly grabbed the woman in a red dress's shoulder and pulled her to the side. Chapter 9:12. Chi. The woman in red's body split into two. The scene was too bloody and indescribable. However, the woman in red's soul was still there. However, her soul couldn't escape. The difference in strength between her and Yi Ling was too great. In front of Yi Ling, she didn't even have the strength to fight back. Yi Ling didn't kill the woman in red's soul directly. Instead, she took out a black jar and put the woman in red into it. Inside the jar was a completely different world. Little Hell. This was also a treasure of the Shura clan. It was specially used to collect souls. However, it was different from the Azura Hell. This was used to refine souls. Inside the jar, there was tribulation fire that could purify the impurities of the soul. Of course, this purification was extremely cruel because it would burn one's soul for 49 days. Being burned by this fire was worse than death. As soon as she entered the hell, the woman in red was engulfed by the tribulation fire. Ah! Soon, the woman in red's miserable scream came from the jar. "Shura Empress, do you dare to kill me?" Yi Ling was expressionless. "Kill you? Isn't that too merciful? Let me tell you, I will make your entire Shura clan die a horrible death." As she spoke, she looked at Yuan Ling not far away. Die. With that, she waved her right hand. The Azura sting in her hand turned into a beam of light and flew out. At the tip of the Azura sting, a wisp of red light appeared. In an instant, the space was torn apart like a piece of paper. Not only that, but the Azura sting entered the three-dimensional space. Yuan Ling's expression was unprecedentedly solemn. He knew that if he couldn't take this attack, he would die without a doubt. Yuan Ling didn't take it head-on. He suddenly said, "Attack." As soon as he spoke, rumble. The space around Yuan Ling suddenly trembled. In the next moment, Yi Ling's Azura sting stopped a few feet in front of Yuan Ling. At this moment, 4 beams of white light suddenly locked onto Yi Ling's Azura sting. At the same time, 4 white-robed elders appeared in front of Yuan Ling. All 4 of them wore white robes and held staffs in their hands. At this time, Yi Ling, who was standing in the distance, suddenly opened his palm. The Azura thorn in the middle of the 4 white lights suddenly trembled violently. Waves of powerful energy surged out, causing the 4 white lights to tremble. However, the Azura thorn still couldn't break free from the 4 white lights and was firmly locked in place. In the distance, Yi Ling suddenly clenched her fists and lightly stomped her right foot. Boom! The space within a radius of hundreds of thousands of feet exploded and turned pitch black. At this moment, the Azura spike suddenly broke free from the 4 white lights and returned to Yi Ling's hand. Yi Ling looked at the 4 white-robed old men. She was about to attack when a huge spiritual seal appeared above her head. Bang! A powerful strand of white light suddenly enveloped Yi Ling. However, it exploded in the next moment. However, another strand of white light shot down from the spiritual seal and enveloped Yi Ling. At the same time, numerous white chains suddenly appeared in the surroundings, and they surged madly towards Yi Ling. Moreover, an enormous white formation of light had suddenly appeared beneath Yi Ling's feet. Countless white talismans were revolving madly on the formation, and strands of mysterious energy were ceaselessly pulling Yi Ling, who was above them. In the formation, Yi Ling scanned the surroundings. In the next moment, she swung the Azura dagger in her hand. Hiss! Countless strands of white light shattered, but countless white chains arrived in front of her in the next moment. Yi Ling suddenly swept the Azura thorn horizontally. Bang! The white chains shattered, but before she could attack again, a strand of white light enveloped her. The white beams and white chains were simply endless, and the spiritual seal above her was ceaselessly absorbing the spiritual energy in the space around her. As for the formation beneath her feet, it was ceaselessly suppressing her realm and strength. At this moment, Yi Ling was directly trapped within it, and she was unable to escape. Meanwhile, a white-robed old man in the distance suddenly said, "Come out." As soon as he spoke, the 4 of them suddenly formed seals. In the next moment, a spiritual sword made of spiritual energy suddenly appeared in the sky. As soon as this spiritual sword appeared, the sky above the devouring spirit clan trembled violently as if it was on the verge of collapsing. The white-robed old man was just about to speak when a sword howl suddenly resounded in the distant sky. In the next moment, a figure charged directly towards the spiritual sword. It was Yi Xian. The white-robed old man frowned slightly when he saw Yi Xian. In the next moment, he directly gave up on Yi Ling, and his right hand swept towards Yi Xian from afar. Slash! Buzz! The spiritual sword directly turned into a snow-white sword light and slashed towards Yi Xian. The speed of the sword was extremely fast, like a bolt of lightning, and it instantly arrived in front of Yi Xian. Moreover, it contained an extremely large amount of energy. It should be known that this sword was used to slash Yi Ling. And who was Yi Ling? He was the strongest expert in the 5th dimension. Therefore, how could this sword be weak? However, Yi Xian did not dodge, and let the sword slash his body. Bang! The sword directly sank into Yi Xian's body, and then a powerful energy erupted from Yi Xian's body like a tide. Seeing this scene, the experts of the devouring spirit clan were all stunned. What was going on? At this moment, the white-robed old man's expression suddenly changed. Not good, he devoured the spiritual sword. Devoured? Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Devouring sword? In the air, Yi Xian's aura skyrocketed at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this moment, even Yi Xian himself was a little stunned. This was because the energy contained in the sword was far beyond his expectations. The energy that erupted from the sword was too terrifying, and his body was almost unable to bear it. At this moment, the white-robed old man suddenly said, "Kill him." Below, the patriarch of the devouring spirit clan, Yuan Ling, directly rushed towards Yi Xian. Seeing this, Yi Xian was shocked. He could not attack at all, because he was about to make a breakthrough. However, at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. "I promised you that I would help you twice. Do you want it now?" How could Yi Xian refuse? He hurriedly nodded. "Yes." Zhang Wenxiu nodded, and then she turned around. She opened her palm, and a bolt of lightning suddenly fell into her grasp. A spear condensed from lightning was within the lightning, and she stabbed it forward in the next moment. Rumble. Yuan Ling was forced to stop on the spot by Zhang Wenxiu. Yuan Ling stared fixedly at Zhang Wenxiu. Worldwide Academy's Zhang Wenxiu. The corners of Zhang Wenxiu's mouth curled up slightly. "It's me." Yuan Ling spoke in a low voice, "This has nothing to do with you." Zhang Wenxiu smiled, "I'm just being a busybody." "What? You're not convinced? Hit me if you're not convinced." Yuan Ling stared fixedly at Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu smiled, "If you don't hit me, then I'll hit you." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly swept her spear forward, World Wielder. With a sweep of the spear, a wave of lightning surged out, and the entire horizon was instantly covered by this wave of lightning. In front of Zhang Wenxiu, Yuan Ling's expression changed. He clasped his hands together, and a spiritual seal suddenly appeared in front of him. Then, a powerful force erupted from the spiritual seal. Rumble. An explosion suddenly resounded in the sky, and Yuan Ling immediately retreated. As he retreated, countless bolts of lightning exploded, and the entire horizon was a mess. At this moment, the white-robed elder was about to make a move, but he seemed to have thought of something and stopped. The four of them had worked together and used various formations to trap the Shura Empress. If he made a move now and allowed the Shura Empress to escape, then the situation would be dire. The white-robed elder turned to the right. Attack! In the distant mountain range on the right, an angry roar suddenly resounded. In the next moment, a long blade suddenly streaked across the sky, slashing straight at Zhang Wenxiu. The long blade streaked across the sky, and a huge hole was directly torn in the horizon. When the long blade reached 100 feet in front of Zhang Wenxiu, it suddenly slowed down. Seeing this, Zhang Wenxiu sneered, "Second dimension." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeves, and the long spear in her hand flew out, entering the second dimension. Rumble. The space in front of Zhang Wenxiu suddenly exploded, and at this moment, a large blade was directly sent flying. 100 feet away, a middle-aged man suddenly reached out and firmly grasped the large blade. Zhang Wenxiu looked at the middle-aged man, and the middle-aged man carried the large blade and walked towards Zhang Wenxiu. As expected of the strongest person below the 6 great powerhouses. Zhang Wenxiu, the strongest person below the 6 great powerhouses. In the 5th dimension, other than the 6 great powerhouses, Zhang Wenxiu was undoubtedly the strongest. In the sky, Yuan Ling glanced at Yi Ling below. At this moment, Yi Ling was still trapped in the Great Array, but the Great Array was already on the verge of breaking. Obviously, he could not be trapped any longer. As if thinking of something, Yuan Ling looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's aura had reached an extremely terrifying level. Obviously, he was about to break through. He could not delay any longer. Yuan Ling looked at the middle-aged man beside her. "Yuan Xiu, let's work together." Yuan Xiu nodded. If they did not work together, none of them would be able to kill this Zhang Wenxiu alone. The two of them directly rushed towards Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at Yi Xian. Just now, I have already helped you twice. What I owe you has already been repaid. Now, I will help you once. Draw me a 7-colored talisman, deal? Yi Xian's face darkened. This woman was taking advantage of the situation. Seeing that Yi Xian did not speak, Zhang Wenxiu said, "You're not willing? It's okay, I won't force you. I am a very reasonable person." As she said this, she lightly patted Yi Xian's shoulder. "We will meet again. Take care." After saying this, she turned around and left. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. He immediately said, I'm willing. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. "I didn't force you, did I?" Yi Xian quickly shook his head. No, I did it willingly." "Really, I did it willingly." Zhang Wenxiu nodded. "Remember, you have to draw me a talisman." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and stabbed with her spear. The tip of her spear exploded with lightning, and both Yuan Ling and Zhang Wenxiu were forced to stop by Zhang Wenxiu's spear. Zhang Wenxiu laughed coldly. 2 against 1? You're even more shameless than Yi Xian. Yi Xian was speechless. Where he was, Yi Xian took a deep breath. He decided to leave this woman alone and focus on his breakthrough. However, at this moment, the white-haired old man leading the group suddenly said, "Kill the Empress first." As soon as he finished speaking, numerous blood-red dots like the tips of needles appeared around Yi Ling, and they spread towards Yi Ling suddenly. Zhang Wenxiu said, "That's the spirit-devouring forbidden technique." Chapter 9:13. When Yi Xian's blood rushed out of his body, a monstrous hostility and killing intent instantly enveloped the entire devouring spirit clan. At this moment, the entire devouring spirit clan was shocked. Because the murderous intent and evil aura were truly too powerful. At this time, Yi Ling suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at the sky and saw Yi Xian's blood boiling in the air like oil. Because most of Yi Xian's blood had left his body, his vitality was fading at an extremely fast speed. Yi Ling didn't think much. She grabbed with her right hand and a powerful force directly enveloped the blood. The next moment, the blood was forcibly sent back into Yi Xian's body. Boom! As the blood entered his body, Yi Xian's body trembled violently. A powerful aura swept out from his body, and this aura contained 2 kinds of power. Vitality and Death Qi. Life and Death Realm. Because of the sudden mutation caused by the sword and blood he had swallowed, Yi Xian directly reached the Life and Death Realm. But at this moment, his blood was activated, and he gradually fell into a state of madness, losing his mind. Yi Ling quickly put her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder, and a powerful force directly enveloped Yi Xian. She didn't dare to let Yi Xian completely enter that state of madness, because Yi Xian's mind might be completely eroded by the killing intent, and he would be lost in the killing intent and hostility. However, at this moment, she could no longer suppress Yi Xian's blood. A powerful force directly shook Yi Ling back a few meters. The next moment, Yi Xian slashed at Yi Ling. Yi Ling's pupils shrank slightly. She didn't dodge, and Yi Xian's sword suddenly stopped half an inch away from her eyebrows. The sword in Yi Xian's hand and his body trembled crazily, and his whole face twisted as if he was struggling in pain. Yi Ling was about to attack again when Lian Xian appeared beside Yi Ling. She hurriedly stopped Yi Ling, shaking her head. Don't hold back. The more you hold back, the more dangerous it will be for him. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. Let him release. Let him release the murderous aura in his heart. Yi Ling was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly raised his head and roared furiously. After that, he turned around and transformed into a blood-red ray of light that charged towards the 4 white-robed old men. The sword light was like blood, dyeing the sky red. Seeing Yi Xian rushing over, the white-haired old man in the lead suddenly pointed his finger forward, and a white blade of light flew out from his fingertip. The blade of light streaked across the sky, tearing everything in its path. In the distance, Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. Boom! The white blade of light exploded apart. Yi Xian continued forward and slashed at the white-haired old man in the lead. The white-haired old man took a step forward, and a white square seal suddenly flew out from his sleeve. A strand of powerful spirit energy suddenly erupted from within the seal. Rumble. The sky trembled violently as Yi Xian was instantly blasted flying, and the execution heaven sword in his hand suddenly flew out while he was flying backwards. The boundless sword. It arrived in an instant. The white-haired old man's expression changed slightly. He took a step back, and then he sat on the ground and grabbed forward. This grab directly grabbed onto Yi Xian's execution heaven sword. However, the tip of the execution heaven sword had stabbed half an inch into the center of his forehead. The execution heaven sword trembled violently, but it was unable to move another inch forward. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above the white-haired old man. A heavy sword had suddenly appeared in his hand, and he held it with both hands as he swiftly slashed it down. This slash carried the might to collapse the heavens and the earth. Meanwhile, the white-haired old man suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's execution heaven sword and stabbed it towards Yi Xian's stomach. He was even swifter. However, he'd overlooked something, and it was that Yi Xian wouldn't dodge at all. So, it was just as the white-haired old man wished. His sword stabbed into Yi Xian's stomach while Yi Xian's sword struck his head. Bang! Hiss! The white-haired old man's figure was blasted flying. When he finally stopped moving, half of his head had split open. It wasn't just his head, even his entire body had cracked apart like a spider web. But it didn't take long for his body to recover at an extremely swift pace. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when the other three white-robed old men by the white-haired old man's side suddenly vanished on the spot. In the instant that the three of them disappeared, Yi Ling also disappeared. Hiss! A sharp voice resounded in the surroundings. The expressions of the three white-robed old men changed drastically. They hurriedly stopped and attacked simultaneously. However, Yi Ling's body suddenly became illusory. One of the old men's expression changed drastically. Triple-dimensional space, as he spoke, a dim light suddenly flew from between his eyebrows. Hiss! The old man's head was pierced and blood splattered. The other two old men retreated frantically and didn't dare to attack again. Without the array to restrain Yi Ling, they were simply useless in front of Yi Ling. Yi Ling looked down. At this moment, Yi Xian had charged into the devouring spirit clan's cavalry. The cavalry was no match for Yi Xian. Every time Yi Xian swung his sword, a bloody head would fly. In a short period of time, Yi Xian had killed more than a dozen devouring spirit clan's cavalrymen. After they were killed, Yi Xian absorbed all their souls and blood essence. After Yi Xian absorbed the blood essence, his aura became stronger and stronger. Becoming stronger through slaughter. Seeing that no one could stop Yi Xian, Yi Ling immediately turned to look at the white-haired old man in the distance. The white-haired old man's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly said, "Sacrificial array." As his voice fell, a white beam of light suddenly shot up from the depths of the distant mountain range. The next moment, an illusory giant blade suddenly condensed in the sky above the devouring spirit clan. This giant blade was blood-red in color, and countless tiny blood-red dots were emitting from it. Seeing this blood-red giant blade, Yi Ling stretched out her right hand and the azura thorn appeared in her hand. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu, who was in the distance, suddenly swept the two away with her spear and appeared beside Yi Ling. "Don't fight head-on. There is still a mysterious expert in the devouring spirit clan who hasn't taken action yet." Yi Ling looked into the depths of the mountain range. She could feel that there was an obscure aura in the distant mountain range. It was very powerful. Moreover, there was more than one. Zhang Wenxiu continued, "You won't be able to destroy them all by yourself. Moreover, as far as I know, this clan has a spirit-restraining divine array. If this array is activated and they use their experts to pin you down, you can't do anything. With that, she looked at Yi Xian below and said, he is in a very bad situation now. If he doesn't wake up, he may never wake up. Yi Ling slowly closed her eyes. In the distance, the blood-red giant blade above the devouring spirit clan also stopped and did not move. Obviously, the devouring spirit clan did not want to have a life-and-death struggle with Yi Ling. At this moment, with Zhang Wenxiu here, they could not pin down Yi Ling at all. If they could not pin down Yi Ling, it meant that they could not use the array to trap Yi Ling. In this case, if they wanted to kill Yi Ling, they might have to use the power of the entire clan. Moreover, if Yi Ling chose to escape, it would be difficult for them to kill him even if they gathered the power of the entire clan. Now that the devouring spirit clan had suffered heavy losses, they did not want more people to die. Of course, in the end, it all depended on Yi Ling's choice. If Yi Ling really wanted to have a life-and-death struggle, they had no other choice but to kill Yi Ling at all costs. After a while, Yi Ling suddenly opened her eyes. She flew directly to Yi Xian's side. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed at her with his sword as fast as lightning. Yi Ling did not dodge, and Yi Xian's sword did not really slash down. His sword stopped half an inch away from Yi Ling's eyebrows. Looking at the bloody Yi Xian in front of her, Yi Ling's tears suddenly flowed down. The man in front of her, no matter what, would never hurt her. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and rushed into the distance. Yi Ling suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's hand, and a powerful force directly suppressed Yi Xian. The next moment, she turned around and looked at the white-robed elder and the others in the distance, her face as cold as ice. Devouring spirit clan, in this life, my brother and sister will slaughter your entire clan. In the depths of the mountain range, a light laugh resounded, I'll wait for you brother and sister to come. Yi Ling glanced at the depths of the mountain range and then said, Azura cavalry, retreat. After speaking, she turned around and disappeared into the sky with Yi Xian. At this moment, the Azura cavalry also retreated like a tide, and the devouring spirit clan's cavalry had lost more than half of its members. This was naturally because of Yi Xian. In the sky, Zhang Wenxiu did not leave immediately. Instead, he looked at the depths of the mountain range and said, you violated the agreement signed with teacher. In the depths of the mountain range, the voice laughed and said, the one who signed the agreement was the current patriarch of the devouring spirit clan, not us. Moreover, your teacher is no longer in this world, isn't he? Zhang Wenxiu sneered, teacher should not have been merciful in the past. The voice said softly, in this world, the strong are respected. When your teacher was alive, he was strong, and everyone in this world had to reason with him. Our devouring spirit clan could not defeat him in the past, so we accepted whatever he said. But now, no one can force our devouring spirit clan to be reasonable. Zhang Wenxiu said with a smile, it wasn't a bad thing for all of you when teacher reasoned with all of you. But now, if your devouring spirit clan continues to act like this, then I'm afraid no one will be able to reason with you. The voice laughed and said, perhaps. No matter what, this world owes us, and we will take it back bit by bit. Zhang Wenxiu shrugged and said, good luck to all of you. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. The patriarch of the devouring spirit clan said softly, these two women are extraordinarily strong. The voice resounded once more in the mountain range, this world is no longer the world of the past, and our devouring spirit clan is no longer the invincible devouring spirit clan of all those years ago. Now that our devouring spirit clan has emerged into the world, the forces outside will inevitably panic. In order to prevent them from joining forces against our devouring spirit clan, send out an order that our devouring spirit clan has emerged into the world this time for the supreme treasure in Yi Xian's possession and the myriad dimension library. Hearing this, the patriarch of the devouring spirit clan nodded slightly, understood. In the depths of the mountain range, a voice sounded softly, this time, no one can stop our devouring spirit clan. Chapter 9:14 Azura Hell. Yi Ling directly brought Yi Xian back to Azura Hell. Yi Ling sat cross-legged on the ground. His blood was boiling like magma, and a powerful aura was constantly surging out of his body. Yi Ling gently placed her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder, and a gentle force constantly surged towards Yi Xian. She didn't dare to suppress it because Yi Xian's blood had mutated. She was afraid that if she used too much force, it would backfire. On the side, Zhang Wenxiu curiously looked at Yi Xian. She had to admit that Yi Xian's bloodline was too strange. This was the first time she had seen such a powerful bloodline. At this moment, she was a little curious about Yi Xian's identity. This guy's father or ancestor was definitely not an ordinary person. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a sea of blood. At the same time, a powerful and violent aura exuded from his body. Yi Ling hurriedly grabbed Yi Xian's hands and said in a trembling voice, "Big brother. Big brother." This form of address made Yi Xian's body stiffen. Gradually, the violent aura around him calmed down. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Ling. This guy actually called Yi Xian big brother. This relationship was a little confusing. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian's aura gradually calmed down. Although his blood was still boiling, he wasn't as crazy as before. At least, he didn't attack anymore. Yi Ling stood up and turned to look in the direction of the Devouring Soul clan. Her expression was as cold as ice, making people shudder. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, "Don't be impulsive. You can't destroy the entire Devouring Soul clan by yourself." Yi Ling was expressionless and didn't speak. However, the Azura thorn in her hand was trembling violently. A moment later, Yi Ling turned around and walked in front of Yi Xian. She held Yi Xian's hands tightly and didn't speak. At this time, Fu Wenzong, Shen Xinghe, and Lu Yong arrived. When they saw Yi Xian, they were both relieved. When they learned that Yi Xian had gone to the Devouring Soul clan, they immediately rushed over. Unfortunately, they were a little late. The battle was already over when they arrived. At this moment, the space in front of Zhang Wenxiu suddenly trembled. A moment later, Zhang Wenxiu's mouth curled into a sneer. "What Devouring Soul clan said?" Shen Xinghe looked at Zhang Wenxiu and said, "Zhang, Yi Xiu. What do you mean?" Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, "The Devouring Soul clan spread the news that their goal this time is the Universal Library and the treasure in Yi Xian's hands." Hearing this, Shen Xinghe's face immediately sank. Good plan. Originally, when the Devouring Soul clan appeared, some ancient forces would definitely not sit still. After all, in the past, the Devouring Soul clan almost destroyed the entire fifth dimension. Therefore, when the Devouring Soul clan appeared, in order to protect themselves, many ancient forces would definitely join hands. But now, the Devouring Soul clan said that their goal was the Universal Library and Yi Xian's World Prison Pagoda. Therefore, many ancient forces would definitely not take action. They would just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. They would let the Devouring Soul clan and Yi Xian and the Worldwide Academy fight to the death. This was the reality. If it didn't concern them, they would just ignore it. Shen Xinghe said in a deep voice, "The other forces will definitely be gloating." Zhang Wenxiu said with a smile, "Of course they will gloat." Before this, no one dared to have any ideas about the Universal Library. Whoever fights will die. But now, someone has finally come forward. Therefore, their chance has come. Saying this, she shook her head. It has been too long. So long that many people have forgotten the terror of the Devouring Soul clan. Shen Xinghe nodded. In fact, he did not know the strength of the Devouring Soul clan because he had not experienced the era of the Devouring Soul clan. Qingcheng, Yi clan, Ancestral Temple. Ancestor, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. And on both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly sounded in the ancestral temple. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her two small hands were tightly holding the hem of her skirt. Her face was sickly pale, looking a little weak. There was even a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to dismiss Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral temple and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a clan matter. Why are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the great elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral temple. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether or not he is crippled, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new Prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder coldly replied, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the prince's position. It is everyone's wish. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 personal guards. You can be my personal guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back." "Understood." Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and stopped. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, all the elders frowned. The great elder squinted his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Peng! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, "Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the hall. Once again, she bowed to the elders. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The Great Elder suddenly raged. "Whether or not he is crippled, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The Great Elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You are very good. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. From now on, you will be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Do not show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu did not know what he saw, but he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his expression turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu's head spun, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Chapter 9:15. Azura Hell. At this moment, Yi Xian's aura had completely calmed down, but he still hadn't woken up. Yi Ling had been guarding him silently from the side. Shen Xinghe and Lu Yong hadn't left either. As for Zhang Wenxiu, he'd slipped away somewhere. Yi Ling gazed silently at Yi Xian, and she'd never let go of Yi Xian. At this moment, the events of the Green City kept surfacing in her mind. Before she'd met Yi Xian, she'd never felt familial love in her entire life. Because she'd shouldered the responsibility of protecting the Azura Hell since she was born. The Azura Hell had trapped the undead emperors, but hadn't it trapped the Azura clan as well? In order to deal with the Azura Hell, she'd utilized the Azura clan's secret technique to enter the cycle of reincarnation to search for the prophet. However, she hadn't expected that she wouldn't be able to find the prophet and would instead become Yi Xian's younger sister. It was this young man who'd made her feel familial love that she'd never felt before. Right at this moment, Yi Xian's fingers suddenly trembled. Yi Ling hurriedly looked at Yi Xian and said softly, Big brother? Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. His pupils were still slightly scarlet, but there was some clarity in them. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Ling and said softly, Ling, Yi Ling instantly smiled when she heard Yi Xian. She'd rarely smiled in her entire life. Yi Xian slowly sat up, glanced at the surroundings, and then said, Have we left the Devouring Spirit clan? Yi Ling nodded, yes. Yi Xian smiled, It's good that you're fine. Yi Ling gazed at Yi Xian, Big brother, what do you think? What do I think? Yi Xian's expression instantly turned cold, Kill them. The Devouring Spirit clan could target him, but not Yi Ling. This time, the Devouring Spirit clan had joined hands with the undead emperor to target Yi Ling. They had almost killed Yi Ling. How could Yi Xian tolerate this? Moreover, the Devouring Spirit clan would not let him and Yi Ling off. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Yi Ling nodded slightly. Kill them. As she spoke, she stood up and looked at the Azura spike in her hand. I have 2 things to do now. The first is to find the undead emperor and those vengeful spirits and evil spirits that have escaped. I once promised my master that I wouldn't let those vengeful spirits and evil spirits escape to bring disaster to the world. Yi Xian asked, What's the second thing? Yi Ling said, Awaken the Azura soul. Awaken the Azura soul. Shen Xinghe's eyelids twitched. Yi Xian did not know how terrifying the Azura spike was. But they did. If the Azura soul in the Azura spike was awakened, the Azura spike would instantly surpass Heaven Blade and Heaven Measuring Ruler. And with Yi Ling's terrifying strength, it was scary just thinking about it. Yi Ling looked at the horizon and said softly, "From now on, my Azura clan's Azura Iron Cavalry will be under your command. Other than them, the Azura Kingdom has 12 Azura Death Guards. I've already ordered them to hurry back. When they return, they will look for you and you will command them." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. "Be careful of the Devouring Spirit clan. I will find you after I am done." As she spoke, she turned into a dim light and disappeared into the horizon. After Yi Ling left, the commander of the Azura cavalry suddenly came before Yi Xian and knelt on one knee. Subordinate Yi Qiu greets young Master Yi. The Azura cavalry behind him also knelt down. Yi Xian said softly, "Rise." All the Azura cavalry stood up. After the battle with the Devouring Spirit clan, there were only 79 Azura cavalry left. They had lost 21 people. As if he had thought of something, he suddenly looked at Shen Xinghe. "Old Shen, as far as I know, our talismans can be infused into weapons, right?" Shen Xinghe nodded. "Yes. But we are not good at it. Only the crafting sect can do it." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "How about this? We will draw a batch of perfect orange talismans and ask the crafting sect to infuse them into weapons." Shen Xinghe glanced at the Azura cavalry. "For them?" Yi Xian nodded. "Can we?" Shen Xinghe thought for a moment and then said, "I have an idea. Not only can we infuse their weapons with talismans, we can also infuse them with perfect orange defensive talismans." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "If that's the case, we will need a lot of talismans. Moreover, we may need to forge new equipment for them." Shen Xinghe smiled. "We, the Fu Wenzong, may not have much, but we have a lot of money." "A lot?" Yi Xian. Lu Yong also smiled. "Little ancestor, you don't have to worry about that. With the financial resources of the Fu Wenzong, we can arm them to the teeth. Moreover, we can use the best equipment and talismans. Not only that, we can also ask the crafting sect to make them some tailor-made equipment. Apart from that, we can also ask the alchemy sect to make some top-grade pills for them to increase their strength." Yi Xian was a little hesitant. The Azura cavalry were not Fu Wenzong soldiers. Moreover, he had never thought of bringing them to Fu Wenzong and making them part of Fu Wenzong. After all, they were Yi Ling's own people. As if he knew what Yi Xian was thinking, Lu Yong smiled. "Little ancestor, don't worry too much. Right now, we are in the same boat as the Shura Empress. We, the Fu Wenzong, will not care about such a small benefit." In fact, Fu Wenzong was very happy at this time. It should be known that although the Fu Wenzong was a big force in the fifth dimension, their own combat power was not enough. Because of Yi Xian, the Fu Wenzong already had many hidden enemies. Now, there was the Devouring Spirit race. In this case, being able to ally with the Shura Hell was undoubtedly a great thing for Fu Wenzong. The Shura Empress alone was enough to intimidate countless people. Hearing Lu Yong's words, Yi Xian nodded. He looked at Yi Qiu in front of him. "Commander Yi, bring everyone from the Shura Hell and follow me to Fu Wenzong." Yi Qiu cupped his fists. "Understood." With that, he turned around and left. The Shura Hell did not only have the Shura cavalry. There were also some experts. However, the Shura cavalry was the strongest. At this time, Tian and Di also came in front of Yi Xian. Tian looked at Yi Xian. "Master asked us to follow you." Yi Xian nodded. "Follow me back to Fu Wenzong." Tian nodded. "Okay." They now understood the position of Yi Xian in Yi Ling's heart. Incomparably important. Soon, Yi Xian led everyone back to Fu Wenzong. Banished Immortal City. Somewhere in the city, by a river, Li Mubai walked out of the thatched hut. He sat by the river and took out his fishing rod. Beside him, Li Shijuan stood respectfully. After a long time, the fishing rod in Li Mubai's hands suddenly trembled, but he did not care. Li Shijuan softly said, "Uncle." Li Mubai said, "The devouring spirit race has appeared." Li Shijuan was curious. The devouring spirit race that almost destroyed the entire fifth dimension? Li Mubai nodded. Li Shijuan solemnly said, "They came out to target the Shura Empress. They are very ambitious. However, with their current strength, they should not be able to destroy the entire fifth dimension." Li Mubai shook his head. "You underestimate them." Li Shijuan looked at Li Mubai. "Uncle, please enlighten me." Li Mubai smiled. "Shijuan, do you know why I admire Yi Xian?" Li Shijuan solemnly said, "He is very strong." Li Mubai shook his head. "Shijuan, your talent is not worse than his, and your strength is not much worse than his. However, you are inferior to him in one aspect: courage and spirit." Li Shijuan was silent. Li Mubai continued, "When he faced me, he was neither servile nor overbearing. When you faced me, you were very respectful, but too respectful, to the point that you lost yourself." Li Shijuan respectfully saluted. "Uncle, I have something to tell you. I want to go out and explore." Li Mubai looked at Li Shijuan. The latter softly said, "Staying by uncle's side, I feel a lot of restrictions. This is not a good thing for me. Therefore, I want to go out and explore. Maybe I will gain something." Li Mubai nodded. "Your idea is very good." As he said this, he looked at the distant horizon and softly said, "Now that the devouring spirit race has reappeared in the world, this world will not be peaceful. Of course, many opportunities will appear along with it. It is a good thing for you to explore." Li Shijuan respectfully saluted. "Uncle, take care." After saying this, he turned and left. At this time, a saber wrapped in white cloth suddenly appeared in front of Li Shijuan. Li Shijuan was stunned. "Uncle, this is the heaven saber." What do you mean?" Li Mubai softly said, "I have been waiting for the right time to give it to you. Now, the time has come." Li Shijuan shook her head. "Uncle, this saber is yours." Li Mubai smiled and said, "Your uncle has not used this kind of external object for many years. This saber is no different from a piece of wood to me, but it is different in your hands. Don't be long-winded. Take it." Li Shijuan did not hesitate anymore. He took the heaven saber and respectfully saluted again. "Uncle, take care." After saying this, he turned and left. After a while, he disappeared from Li Mubai's sight. Li Mubai withdrew his gaze and looked at the river in front of him. At this time, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared beside Li Mubai. The middle-aged man looked at the river and smiled. "Good mood." Li Mubai lightly said, 3 breaths. "If you are still standing here, believe me, your head will definitely be separated from your neck." The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled. "You know that you can't kill me." Li Mubai looked at the middle-aged man. "Then try." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Listen to me. If you are not tempted, then I will leave immediately and not disturb you again." As he spoke, he glanced at the thatched hut and said, "My devouring spirit clan has a mysterious forbidden technique, the soul revival forbidden technique. This forbidden technique has the ability to defy the heavens. So long as one's soul is not destroyed, then one can utilize this forbidden technique to bring someone back to life." The fishing rod in Li Mubai's hand suddenly shattered into nothingness. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "If you are willing, then the experts of my clan can execute this forbidden technique for your beloved right now and bring her back to life." Chapter 9:16. Beside the river, Li Mubai sat quietly for a long time without saying anything. Beside him, the middle-aged man had a slight smile on his face. He did not say anything else and simply waited. The 6 experts were the biggest stumbling block for the Devouring Spirit clan, but the Devouring Spirit clan had never thought of eradicating them. Those who could be eradicated must be eradicated, and those who could be roped in must be roped in. Because if all 6 of them became enemies with the Devouring Spirit clan, the Devouring Spirit clan would not be able to bear it. Just then, Li Mubai suddenly shook his head. I want her to live, but she certainly doesn't want me to become someone else's slave. The middle-aged man immediately said, twice. As he spoke, he looked at Li Mubai. Help my clan twice. After these 2 times, we are even. Li Mubai looked at the middle-aged man, who said with a smile, of course, if you are still unwilling, it doesn't matter. The Devouring Spirit clan does not want to be enemies with you. By the river, Li Mubai was lost in thought. The middle-aged man said again, the sooner we save her, the greater the hope. At this time, the fishing rod in Li Mubai's hands suddenly trembled. The fish took the bait. However, Li Mubai still did not move. Fu Wenzong. After returning to Fu Wenzong with the Azura clan experts, Yi Xian immediately began to draw talismans. Because some experts had come to Fu Wenzong for the bounty he had issued before. These people were not weak, and they were willing to fight for him on the premise that he needed talismans. He did not need to draw the perfect orange talisman. Some top rune masters in Fu Wenzong could draw it. He mainly needed to draw the 7-color talismans because he was the only one who could draw the 7-color talismans. And all the rune masters in Fu Wenzong were also drawing talismans crazily. Now, it could be said that Fu Wenzong was going to arm the Azura cavalry to the teeth. About 5 days later, Yi Xian left his hut. At this moment, he looked tired and a little pale. At this time, Shen Xinghe hurriedly came to him. Little Grand Master, are you all right? Yi Xian shook his head. He opened his palm, in which there were 3 7-color talismans. In these 5 days, he had drawn a total of 3 7-colored talismans. It wasn't that he didn't want to draw more, it was just that drawing these 7-colored talismans was too mentally taxing. Moreover, drawing the 7-color talisman required one more thing, and that was materials. It required far too many precious materials. Fortunately, Fu Wenzong was filthy rich. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to draw a single one of them. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and the primal chaos chi appeared in his hand. Shen Xinghe's expression instantly changed when he saw the primal chaos chi. Chaos chi. This was the most important thing in drawing the 7-colored talisman. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and then he said softly, Old Shen, I want this strand of chaotic energy to grow in our Fu Wenzong, so that everyone can absorb it. Upon hearing this, Shen Xinghe was stunned. In the next moment, he hurriedly shook his head. Absolutely not. This is yours, Yi Xian shook his head. With the primal chaos chi, all of you will have a chance to draw the 7-colored talisman as well. As for the others in the sect, they will have a greater chance of drawing the perfect talisman. Of course, this strand of chaotic energy is still young, and it can't be absorbed without restraint. So, we need to nurture it and turn it into a spiritual vein of chaotic energy. Only then will it be able to benefit our Fu Wenzong for generations to come. Shen Xinghe had a rather complicated expression on his face. Needless to say, he was feeling very complicated at this moment because he hadn't expected that Yi Xian would hand over the primal chaos chi. After all, this strand of chaotic energy could be said to be the last strand of chaotic energy in the entire 5th dimension. Its preciousness couldn't be measured by anything. At this moment, he recalled Lu Yong's words. Yi Xian wasn't an ingrate. If Fu Wenzong treated him well, he would definitely treat Fu Wenzong well. Shen Xinghe collected his thoughts and looked at Yi Xian. Little ancestor, if you hand over the primal chaos chi, what will happen to you? Yi Xian smiled. My body is now filled with primal chaos chi. Upon hearing this, Shen Xinghe understood. The primal chaos chi had stayed in Yi Xian's body for a long time. It could be said that Yi Xian's body was equivalent to the primal chaos chi. Of course, losing the primal chaos chi would also affect him. For example, if he left Fu Wenzong, although he could still draw the seven-colored talisman, he wouldn't be able to use it as freely as before. However, he didn't regret it. If others treated him with kindness, he would definitely treat them with kindness. The moment the primal chaos chi appeared in Fu Wenzong, the entire Fu Wenzong was in an uproar. Fu Wenzong was very rich, but he couldn't buy the primal chaos chi. It was also because of the primal chaos chi that many powerhouses in Fu Wenzong were unable to draw the seven-colored talisman and regretted it for the rest of their lives. Now, Fu Wenzong had the primal chaos chi. It wouldn't be long before Fu Wenzong's overall strength would make a huge leap. When they learned that the primal chaos chi was contributed by Yi Xian, some of the elders in Fu Wenzong had mixed feelings. Of course, most of them felt gratified and happy. They treated Yi Xian as one of them, and Yi Xian also treated himself as a part of Fu Wenzong. In the beginning, they were worried because Yi Xian had come to Fu Wenzong halfway. They were afraid that Yi Xian would not have a sense of belonging to Fu Wenzong. But looking at it now, they were worried for nothing. After bidding farewell to Shen Xinghe, Yi Xian went to Enlanxiu and Lian Wanli's courtyard. The two women were in closed-door cultivation at this moment. Meanwhile, Lu Yong appeared by Yi Xian's side, and Lu Yong said in a light voice, "They're really extraordinary geniuses." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What?" Lu Yong said, "They improved too quickly. The two of them have already reached the yin-yang realm not long ago. If they come out of closed-door cultivation this time, they'll probably reach the life and death realm." Life and death realm. Yi Xian was visibly moved. Even though he had already reached the life and death realm, it was because he relied on his bloodline and devoured the devouring spirit clan's sword. On the other hand, Enlanxiu and Lian Wanli did not have any great fortuitous encounters. These two women had truly relied on their own talent. In terms of talent, the two women were really not inferior to him. Of course, it couldn't do without Fu Wenzong's support. One had to know that in Fu Wenzong, the two women could get almost anything they wanted. Without Fu Wenzong's support, the two women wouldn't have been able to improve so quickly. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked again, "What about Shao Qi?" Lu Yong said solemnly, "She's even more terrifying. She has now reached the life and death realm, and her sword Dao seems to be breaking through." Sword Dao breakthrough. Yi Xian was a little shocked. Sword Dao breakthrough. The realms of Sword Dao were simple, void, true, bright, break, and mortal. And in the four-dimensional universe, Shao Qi's Sword Dao realm had already broken through. Now that she had broken through, could it be that she was going to reach the legendary mortal realm? Mortal realm. His current realm was just breaking through, so he had to work hard. Yi Xian did not disturb the three women and was about to leave. At this moment, Xiaoling suddenly appeared in front of him. Xiaoling blinked and then opened her small hand. In her hand was a golden core. Yi Xian was stunned. At this moment, Lu Yong said in shock, This is the legendary Meru golden core." Xiaoling looked at Lu Yong and quickly nodded. Seeing this, Lu Yong gulped and his hands trembled. This really is a Meru golden core?" Yi Xian hurriedly asked. "Senior, is this Sumeru golden elixir very precious?" Quote, Lu Yong smiled bitterly. "It's not just precious, it's very, very precious. It's not any less precious than the seven-colored talisman. Moreover, it's been thousands of years since anyone in the alchemy sect has refined such a high-grade pill." Hearing this, Yi Xian was shocked. "So precious?" Lu Yong nodded. "Very precious. This pill is called Meru Golden Core. It has a very, very heaven-defying effect. After swallowing this pill, one can obtain the power of Meru within, and this power of Meru." Speaking up to here, he looked at Yi Xian. "This power of Meru is a very mysterious power. As for its real use, I don't know either. However, Miss Lian Qian beside you should know. At this time, Lian Qian suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. She looked at the golden core and said softly, Xiao Ling, refined it. Xiao Ling, smiled proudly. She was very happy. Lian Qian gently rubbed Xiao Ling, small head and said, Meru is a kind of energy substance. In the past, Master studied it. He once said that a small Meru can contain thousands of universes. Yi Xian frowned. So mysterious? Lian Qian shook her head. Master never speaks carelessly. In order to enter the fourth dimension, one must grasp the power of Meru. Only by grasping the power of Meru can one truly enter the legendary fourth dimension. Of course, some people can use special methods to enter the fourth dimension. However, they can only enter it temporarily. Moreover, it's very different from actually entering the fourth dimension. As she spoke, she picked up the golden core and said softly, if you swallow this golden core, you'll obtain some power of Meru. At that time, you can rely on this power to temporarily enter the fourth dimension. Of course, it won't be for too long. Moreover, a golden core can only allow you to enter the fourth dimension once. Also, this Jindan is much more precious than your 7-colored talisman, because in order to refine this Sumra Jindan, one must possess a profound chi that is even stronger than this Sumra power. Even the primal chaos chi cannot refine this kind of divine pellet. As she spoke, she looked at Xiao Linger. Little guy, what kind of chi did you use to refine it? Yi Xian and Lu Yong also looked at Xiao Linger. Xiao Linger opened her palm and a wisp of purple chi appeared in her hand. Purple chi. Lu Yong's expression instantly turned solemn. What kind of chi is this? Xiao Linger said in a crisp voice, for me. Buy? Lu Yong frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly said, it's a furry white little guy. Elder Lu probably doesn't know him. Lu Yong nodded slightly and didn't say anything. He looked at the wisp of purple chi with eyes full of curiosity. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Linger and smiled. Do you still have this chi? Xiao Linger blinked and then nodded. Yes. Yi Xian walked up to Xiao Linger and squatted down. He said softly, did you specially refine this for me? Xiao Linger nodded. Yes. Yi Xian felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He held Xiao Linger's little hand and said softly, thank you. Xiao Linger hesitated and then said, can I call you brother? Yi Xian laughed. Of course you can. Xiao Linger smiled sweetly. Brother. P.S. I'm sending a red packet to everyone. Remember to collect it. Big red packet. Chapter 9:17. Big Brother. In Xiao Linger's heart, she had always regarded Yi Xian as her big brother. Xiao Linger was not a human, so she was very distrustful of humans. Of course, Yi Xian was not an exception. Because after being together with Yi Xian for so long, she had already regarded Yi Xian as her closest relative. Moreover, she also hoped to call Yi Xian big brother like Yi Ling did. There was no reason, it was just a pure wish. When Yi Xian agreed, she was very happy. Yi Xian picked up Xiao Linger and gently kissed her forehead. He was also very happy, but of course, he was even more distressed. During this period of time, this little guy must have suffered a lot in the world prison pagoda. Thinking of this, Yi Xian grabbed Xiao Linger's small hand and softly said, don't work too hard, okay? Xiao Linger blinked her eyes and said, help you. Yi Xian smiled and said, you can help big brother, but you can't be too tired, okay? Xiao Linger nodded her small head, then suddenly leaned on Yi Xian's shoulder and yawned, I want to sleep. Saying this, she slowly closed her eyes. In order to refine this Sumra pill, she had not rested for a very long time. Yi Xian was somewhat distressed. This little guy must be very tired. He gently hugged Yi Ling and did not disturb this little guy. Just like this, Xiaoling fell asleep on Yi Xian's shoulder. On the side, Lu Yong looked at Xiaoling with a strange expression. Yi Xian was a divine talisman master, and now there was such a monstrous alchemy genius. The status of the alchemy sect in the fifth dimension was not lower than that of Fu Wenzong. Furthermore, if the alchemy sect were to find out about Xiaolinger's existence, they would definitely go crazy. After a while, Yi Xian released Xiaolinger back into the world prison pagoda. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian walked up to the 9th floor. He had always been curious about the identity of the 9th floor. To be locked in the 9th floor, he was definitely not an ordinary person. In front of the 9th pagoda, Yi Xian asked softly, "Senior?" No response. Yi Xian was about to leave when a voice sounded from behind the door. "What's the matter?" Yi Xian stopped and said with a smile, "Senior, can you come out?" The 9th replied, "Not yet." Yi Xian was silent. The person on the 9th floor suddenly said, "Don't worry, I don't have any enmity towards you, and I won't steal your Xiao Ta." Yi Xian was a little surprised. "Why?" The 9th house replied, "Because you have too many backers. I can't beat them." Yi Xian, the person on the 9th floor suddenly said, "I have a small suggestion." Yi Xian said, "Senior, please say it." The person on the 9th floor said, "You have many backers, but that doesn't mean you are absolutely safe. Especially now, you are facing the Devouring Soul clan. This clan is far stronger than you can imagine." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, do you understand the Devouring Soul clan?" The person on the 9th floor said, "Very much. After all, I have had many dealings with them. I can only tell you that they are not simple. If it weren't for the Prophet, the Devouring Soul clan would be the only ones left in the fifth dimension." Yi Xian asked, "Can they beat the plain-dressed woman?" The person on the 9th floor was silent for a while, then said, "If you continue to chat like this, then I won't continue." Yi Xian smiled, "I'm just curious." The person on the 9th floor said, "The strength of the plain-dressed woman behind you has always been a mystery. However, the Devouring Soul clan is not weak. In the past, they were the #1 clan in the fifth dimension. Although they were seriously injured by the Prophet, as far as I know, their core experts still exist. Now that the Prophet has disappeared and they have reappeared, the fifth dimension will face another calamity." Yi Xian shook his head and sighed, "The Prophet is too kind." The person on the 9th floor said, "It is not that he is kind. You should know that he wanted to destroy the entire Devouring Soul clan because the threat of this clan was too great. However, at that time, the Devouring Soul clan had a population of over 100 million. If he asked you to kill 100 million, including the old and the young, would you be able to do it?" Yi Xian said indifferently, "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, however many there are, I will kill them all." The person on the 9th floor sighed, "Young man, it is not a bad thing to have a benevolent heart. Just like you, if you didn't have a benevolent heart to save that little alchemy girl, how could you have obtained a divine item like the Summer pill? There is also your sister, Yi Ling. If you didn't treat her with sincerity, treating her more important than your own life, would the Shura Empress call you brother? Humans are born with good nature. Of course, it is accompanied by evil. Everything has two sides, and everything you do has a cause. This is a good deed, and in the future, it may lead to good results. What you do is evil, and in the future, it may lead to evil results." Yi Xian said, "Senior, there are many times when we don't have good results when we do good deeds. Isn't that right?" The person on the 9th floor said, "This is uncertainty, and it is also a wonderful thing about this world. Everything seems to be predetermined, but in reality, it is not. The ending is not predetermined. For example, an ordinary person may not be born well, but that doesn't mean he can't change his fate. What I want to tell you is that you were able to safely reach this point not because you are ruthless, but because you planted good karma, and now you have reaped good results." Karma. Yi Xian shook his head. These two words were too mysterious. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian looked in front of him. Senior, you are an extraordinary person in the 5th dimension, right? The person on the 9th floor smiled. I am just a nobody, not worth mentioning. Yi Xian shook his head. Like hell I'll believe you. However, he didn't ask any more questions. He cupped his fists and left. As soon as he left the prison pagoda, 12 powerhouses in black armor with blades in their hands suddenly appeared before him. The 12 Shura Death Guards. These 12 people were even stronger than the Shura Iron Cavalry, and they were the super elites of the Shura Kingdom. When the 12 of them saw Yi Xian, they all knelt on one knee. They didn't dare act rashly in front of Yi Xian because they knew how important Yi Xian was to the Shura Empress. Yi Xian sized up the 12 people. Then he said, from now on, you will follow me and wait for my orders. The 12 nodded in unison, understood. Yi Xian looked up at the horizon, in the direction of the Devouring Spirit Clan. He knew that the Devouring Spirit Clan would make a big move soon. A moment later, Yi Xian turned around and left, returning to his room. In the room, Yi Xian took out all of his treasures in one go. Executing Heaven Sword, Soul-Suppressing Sword, All Heaven Brush, Myriad Dimensional Mirror, Book Realm, and the Void Spirit Seal that Li Mubai gave him. These were the treasures he could use at the moment. As for the Immortal Slaying Sword Gourd, they were already outdated. A moment later, Yi Xian put away all his treasures. He opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. Looking at the prison pagoda in his hand, Yi Xian fell into silence. Hand over the pagoda? If it was before, he wouldn't be greedy for this treasure. But now, he wouldn't casually give this Xiao Ta away. Because Xiao Ta treated him as a friend. Dao laws. I must return all the Dao laws. Yi Xian was about to speak when Lian Xian suddenly said, I know what you're thinking. Yinjia and you have found Big Sister, but the whereabouts of the other Dao laws are still unknown. Your top priority now isn't the Dao laws, because they might not necessarily listen to your orders. What you need to do now is to let the tiny pagoda recover its spiritual intelligence completely. If it can, it'll be of great help to you. Moreover, the gathering of the 9 Dao laws will require the cooperation of the tiny pagoda in order to unleash its true power. But Xiao Ta doesn't have the ability to utilize the 9 Dao laws yet. Yi Xian said in a low voice, how can I let it recover completely? Lian Xian said, the Academy. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The Worldwide Academy? Lian Xian nodded. There's a sacred place in the Worldwide Academy called the Ocean of Learning. It can only be restored by placing it in the deepest part of the Ocean of Learning. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I'll go look for Zhang Wenxiu. As soon as he finished speaking, he put the pagoda away and left Fu Wenzong. Yi Xian had just left the strategist sect when an old man suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian sized the old man up and said, and you are? The old man bowed slightly. Old man. The sect master of the strategist sect, Xian Tiance. The strategist sect. It was the sect master of the strategist sect who'd helped the Worldwide Academy's dean, Chen Tian, put a bounty on Yiling's head. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't. Xian Tian spoke in a low voice, Divine Seiji, I have some information that might be helpful to you. Yi Xian sized Xian Tian up and asked, what information? Xian Tian spoke in a low voice, according to my investigations, the devouring spirit race has been to Immortal Banished City. Immortal Banished City. Yi Xian frowned slightly. They've gone to look for Li Mubai? Xian Tian nodded. Not only have they gone to look for Li Mubai, but they've also gone to the Endless Lands. The Endless Lands? Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. What's that place? Xian Tian spoke in a low voice, the Endless Lands are located at the end of the south. There's a primeval race there. The primeval race. Yi Xian said, Sir, please tell me more. At this moment, Lian Xian appeared by Yi Xian's side. She glanced at Xian Tian and said, let me explain. The primeval race was once an extraordinary race. In the years after the devouring spirit race vanished, 3 extraordinary races emerged, and the primeval race was one of them. Besides the primeval race, there was also the evil spirit race and the mysterious martial race. When you were still alive, the Worldwide Academy was the #1 power in the world. Besides the Worldwide Academy, there were these 3 races, the Zen sect, the Pope, and the mysterious martial kingdom. Yi Xian asked, the Zen sect? The Pope? The martial kingdom? Lian Xian nodded, these 2 sects are very mysterious. Back then, before Master appeared, they were already around. Moreover, their disciples were spread all over the world, and they were extremely powerful. However, after Master appeared, they completely hid themselves and slowly disappeared from the eyes of the world. As for the martial kingdom, they were from the same era as the Azura kingdom. In the past, there were 2 extremely powerful cavalry forces. They were the Azura cavalry and the God-burying cavalry. As for the God-burying cavalry, they were the cavalry of the martial kingdom. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. The Azura cavalry is ranked 2nd, and the God-burying cavalry is ranked 1st. Yi Xian said in a soft voice, they are a bit stronger than the Azura cavalry. Lian Xian shook her head. It's not just a bit stronger, it's much, much stronger. It can be said that 10 God-burying cavalrymen are able to sweep away the entire Azura army. In the past, the reason that the Azura king killed so many people to practice his evil cultivation technique was because the threat that the martial kingdom posed to the Azura kingdom was far, far too great. In that era, no one could compete with the God-burying cavalry. Yi Xian asked, then why hasn't there been any movement from them? Lian Xian fell silent for a moment before she said, because they've been suppressed by Master. Back then, anyone who was unwilling to reason with Master was basically suppressed. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 9:18. Domineering. This was Yi Xian's first impression. Strength. I have strength. If I want to reason, everyone in the world has to reason with me. On the contrary, if I don't have strength, even if I have reason, who would be willing to reason with me? Zhang Wenxiu saw this very clearly. Back then, the Worldwide Academy established the order of the 5-dimensional universe, not because the prophet was reasonable, but because he was powerful. Now that the prophet had disappeared, who would be willing to reason with the Worldwide Academy? The core of reason was the fist. Thinking of this, Yi Xian looked at the executing heaven sword in his hand. At this moment, he thought of the woman in the plain dress. The woman who was so powerful that she was unreasonable. Reason? He had never seen the woman in the plain dress reason with anyone. Her sword was reason, and with one strike, everything was fleeting. Of course, this was because she had strength. To put it crudely, this was like the secular world. Rich people's farts were fragrant. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at Xian Tiance in front of him. Why did you come to tell me this? Xian Tiance bowed respectfully. Divine Master Yi, to tell you the truth, because of the old man's stupid action, my strategist sect was destroyed. I want Divine Master Yi to help me rebuild the strategist sect. Yi Xian was silent. Xian Tiance bowed again. If Divine Master Yi is willing to help, the old man and the entire strategist sect are willing to work hard. Yi Xian said, I can help you rebuild the strategist sect, but for now, you can only hide in the dark. Is that okay? Xian Tiance naturally understood what Yi Xian meant. Yi Xian wanted them to hide in the dark and serve him alone. Xian Tiance hesitated. At this time, Yi Xian said, don't worry, in the future, I will do my best to help your strategist sect and make you a great sect. Xian Tiance looked at Yi Xian. Divine Master Yi, the Shura Empress, Yi Xian said with a smile, I am her brother. What I say is what she says. Brother. Xian Tiance's eyelids twitched. He had guessed that the Shura Empress was Yi Xian's sister. Sure enough, the Shura Empress was Yi Xian's sister. Without thinking too much, Xian Su said, "Our heavenly strategy sect is willing to serve Divine Master Yi." Yi Xian nodded. "From now on, help me collect useful information. Also, keep a close eye on the Devouring Spirit clan." Xian Su said solemnly, "We need money." "Very straightforward." Yi Xian nodded. "Ask Fu Wenzong for reimbursement." Xian Tiance glanced at Yi Xian. "Understood." Fu Wenzong was one of the wealthiest sects in the world. Xian Tiance bowed slightly to Yi Xian and then turned to leave. Since the destruction of Fu Wenzong, he had always wanted to rebuild Fu Wenzong. He knew that Yi Xian was his chance, so he had been searching for some useful information for Yi Xian. His purpose was very simple. He wanted to find a backer, and this backer was Yi Xian. To be precise, it was Yi Ling. He valued Yi Ling more. After all, Yi Ling was one of the 6 great experts in the world. With Yi Ling's protection, the Heavenly Strategy sect would definitely regain its former glory. As for revenge, he never thought about it because his strength did not allow him to think about it. After parting with Xian Tiance, Yi Xian went directly to the Worldwide Academy. Repairing the prison tower was what he needed to do now. As soon as he arrived at the Worldwide Academy, Yi Xian once again met an old acquaintance. Lin Xiaoshu, one of the 6 headmasters of the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian laughed and said, "So it's Headmaster Lin. I haven't seen you for a long time." "Headmaster Lin, you're even more spirited." Lin Xiaoshu glanced at Yi Xian and turned to leave without saying anything. He did not cause trouble for Yi Xian because it was meaningless. Zhang Wenxiu was in charge of the academy now. To be honest, compared to the headmaster, he was more afraid of Zhang Wenxiu. This woman would not care about anything when she was ruthless. Moreover, he was clearly aware of the current situation, and it was that the Myriad Dimension Academy had to join forces with Yi Xian. Yi Xian arrived at Zhang Wenxiu's courtyard. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu was in her room. Just as he was about to walk over, a black-robed elder suddenly appeared in front of him. "Divine Master Yi, please wait for a moment." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." With that, he retreated to the side. The black-robed elder glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian glanced around and said, "Senior, as far as I know, the academy has 6 headmasters. Now, it seems that there are only 4 of them. Where are the other 2? The black-robed elder was about to speak when the door behind him suddenly opened. Zhang Wenxiu walked out. Today, Zhang Wenxiu had changed into a simple, tight black dress. Her hair was tied up into a ponytail, and she looked much more heroic than before. Seeing Zhang Wenxiu come out, the black-robed elder retreated. Zhang Wenxiu walked in front of Yi Xian and said calmly, "Why are you asking about them?" Yi Xian smiled. "Isn't this a critical moment? I think you should call them back." Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at the black-robed elder. "Do you have any news about them?" The black-robed elder nodded. "Yes. Headmaster Zhang and Headmaster Su said that they will return after finishing their business." Zhang Wenxiu said, "What about Chen Yimeng?" The black-robed elder said, "Still searching." Zhang Wenxiu nodded. "We must find him. Tell him that if he doesn't return, I will revoke his student status and expel him from the academy." "I will keep my word." The black-robed elder glanced at Zhang Wenxiu and hesitated. "This," Zhang Wenxiu said, "do as I say." The black-robed elder nodded. "Yes." Zhang Wenxiu said again, "What about that woman?" "Headmaster." The black-robed elder shook his head. "There's no news about her." Zhang Wenxiu's face turned cold. How long is this woman going to play around? Yi Xian was speechless. The black-robed elder said, "Headmaster might be busy with something important." Zhang Wenxiu sneered. "Something important? What could she be busy with?" "This woman is very lazy." The black-robed elder didn't say anything else. This wasn't something he could interrupt. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. What are you doing here? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Miss Wenxiu, I hope you can help me restore the prison pagoda. Zhang Wenxiu opened his palm. Yi Xian pointed and the prison pagoda fell into Zhang Wenxiu's hand. After sizing up the world prison pagoda, Zhang Wenxiu furrowed her brows. Who was it that injured this small pagoda so badly? The prison pagoda trembled slightly as if it was saying something. A swordsman? Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Was it done by the woman behind you? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Zhang Wenxiu said softly, amazing. After saying that, she was silent for a moment. To restore this pagoda, we have to bring it to the depths of the ocean of learning and use the talent chi there to restore its spirit. Yi Xian frowned. Talent chi? Zhang Wenxiu nodded. The aura of talent. Countless auras of talent have gathered in the depths of the sea of learning. Back then, little pagoda was born there. Now, if we want it to completely recover, we have to bring it to that place. She looked at Yi Xian. Let me tell you, this Xiao Ta used to be very rebellious. Except for teacher, it didn't recognize anyone. Even teacher couldn't order it around. Once it recovers, you might not be able to control it. At this moment, the prison pagoda suddenly trembled violently as if expressing something. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly slapped the prison pagoda. Shut up. The prison pagoda immediately became obedient. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, help it recover. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Are you sure? Yi Xian nodded. I'm sure. Zhang Wenxiu said, once it recovers, this pagoda might not be under your control. At that time, you might lose it completely. Yi Xian smiled. I have never treated it as my personal property. After it recovers, if it doesn't want to follow me, I won't force it. It's fine as long as it doesn't choose to be my enemy. Even if it chooses to be my enemy, I won't regret it because it has helped me enough. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. You have a good attitude. After saying that, she returned the prison pagoda to Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, Miss Wenxiu, why don't we just open the world dimensional library? This was his idea. The school had the library and he had the pagoda. As long as they cooperated, opening the library was a piece of cake. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. And then? Yi Xian was silent. Zhang Wenxiu said, unless there's something in the library that makes us invincible on the spot, opening the library is courting death. Not to mention now, even if Headmaster and the Empress were here, they wouldn't be able to protect this library. Don't look down on those who haven't shown themselves. When teacher was here, they didn't dare to show themselves, but that doesn't mean they're weak. Now that teacher is gone, they definitely won't allow our worldwide academy to dominate. Once the library is opened, it will be our time of death. Yi Xian said in a low voice, then what should we do? Do we just drag it out like this? Zhang Wenxiu said softly, we can only drag it out. We have no other choice. Because once the library is opened, all the forces in the fifth dimension will focus their attention on it. Don't underestimate their greed. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Zhang Wenxiu stood up. Let's go. Follow me to Shuihai. After saying that, she turned and left. Yi Xian hurriedly took the prison pagoda and followed. In the fourth dimension. In the fourth dimension, somewhere in the vast starry sky, a woman in a plain dress walked slowly in the starry sky. She just walked slowly. Around her, there were countless invisible karma lines. Some of the karma lines were cut off with a swing of her sword. However, she didn't forcibly cut off some karma lines. Instead, she stopped and observed them carefully. Actually, at her level, she could completely avoid all karma lines. However, most of these karma lines were related to Yi Xian. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress suddenly stopped. Not far from her, a middle-aged man walked over. This person was the former headmaster of the Worldwide Academy, Chen Tian. Chen Tian walked to a place not far from the woman in the plain dress. He looked at her and said, "I've been looking for you for a long time." The woman in the plain dress didn't say anything. Chen Tian said again, "I want to see how strong you are. I hope you won't disappoint me." As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful force suddenly swept out from his body. P.S. Sword Domain and Venerable Swordsman's exclusive peripheral gifts are being ordered. If you want them, you can follow the public account, Green Phoenix Peak. You can directly search the public account, Green Phoenix Peak. Chapter 919. In the starry sky, as soon as Chen Tian's aura appeared, the entire starry sky boiled. This starry sky could not withstand his power at all. Chen Tian knew that the woman in front of him was very strong. Therefore, he did not hold back. Soon, the surrounding starry sky began to crack. In the distance, the plain-dressed woman's expression was calm. There was no fluctuation in her eyes. Chen Tian stared at the plain-dressed woman. He suddenly disappeared from where he stood. A powerful force swept across the field. When this force was about 10 feet away from the plain-dressed woman, it suddenly disappeared. Double-dimensional space. This was his limit. He did not hold back in this attack. He did not dare to hold back because he knew that the woman in front of him was very strong. And he wanted to know how strong she was. At this moment, the plain-dressed woman, who had been silent, gently stomped her right foot. Boom! In an instant, the starry sky within a radius of hundreds of thousands of feet turned into nothingness. The starry sky returned to silence. At this time, Chen Tian had already retreated hundreds of feet away. His eyes were dull. "Aren't you a swordsman?" In the distance, the plain-dressed woman was expressionless. "How can an ant like you be worthy of my sword?" With that, she turned and walked into the distance. Behind her, Chen Tian began to disappear bit by bit. Chen Tian looked at the silhouette of the plain-dressed woman at the end of the starry sky. At this moment, his heart was filled with sorrow. In the eyes of others, he was actually an ant. He did not even have the right to be drawn. What a tragedy. At this moment, he knew that Zhang Wenxiu's decision was right. Why did he fight to the death with Yi Xian? Why? Why did he fight to the death with Yi Xian in the first place? Was it not good to be alive? At this moment, he wanted to curse at Yi Xian. If you have such a powerful backer, why don't you tell me? If you tell me, why did I come looking for trouble again and again? Soon, Chen Tian completely disappeared from the silent starry sky. He didn't leave peacefully, nor did he feel at ease. He left with endless unwillingness and regret. In the distance, at the end of the starry sky, the woman in the simple dress walked forward slowly. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She looked up, and when she did, she saw the fifth dimension. Her lips curled up into a smile that caused the entire starry sky to lose color. The plainly dressed woman looked at fifth dimension and said indifferently, "With you here, this world is a little more pleasing to the eye." After saying that, she continued to walk into the distance. Very soon, more and more karmic threads that were invisible to the naked eye extended towards her. Fifth dimension, Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian and Zhang Wenxiu arrived at an ocean. This was the Worldwide Academy's Ocean of Learning, a place created by the Prophet. Soon, the two of them arrived at the center of the Ocean of Learning. Zhang Wenxiu pointed into the distance. "Throw it down." Yi Xian nodded. He took out the World Prison Pagoda. He looked at the World Prison Pagoda in his hand. The World Prison Pagoda trembled slightly, as though it was trying to express something. Yi Xian chuckled and said, "Restore your original appearance." After saying that, he opened his palm and the World Prison Pagoda fell into the depths of the ocean. Yi Xian was about to speak when Zhang Wenxiu suddenly raised her head and looked at the horizon. She glanced at the horizon and sneered. "Don't worry. We're not going to open the study room. Yi Xian looked at the horizon. He could feel some obscure and powerful auras. Someone was coming. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Who are they? Zhang Wenxiu said indifferently, there are all kinds of people. There are also people from the Devouring Spirit clan. Yi Xian said solemnly, kill them. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Go and do it. I'll cheer for you. Yi Xian said seriously, Miss Wenxiu, this is the Worldwide Academy. How can you tolerate them acting so unscrupulously in your academy? They have no respect for your academy at all. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Don't you think I, Zhang Wenxiu, look like an idiot? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. What are you saying, Miss Wenxiu? Zhang Wenxiu said coldly, Yi Xian, the Azura Hell is on the same boat as you, Fu Wenzong, and the Worldwide Academy. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Don't play these stupid games. Understand? Yi Xian said seriously, I understand. I won't make such jokes next time. Zhang Wenxiu looked up at the horizon and said softly, back then, when teacher was still around, who dared to treat the Worldwide Academy like this? Yi Xian was silent. He had not lived through the era of the Prophet, but he could imagine how powerful the Worldwide Academy was at that time. Now that the Prophet had disappeared, the Worldwide Academy was no longer as powerful as it used to be. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, be careful. Yi Xian frowned slightly. You mean, someone might steal the tower? Zhang Wenxiu nodded. Not only that, you have to be careful of that Xiao Ta. Once it completely regains its spiritual intelligence, it may not be the Xiao Ta you know anymore. Yi Xian hesitated and then said, was it very arrogant before? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, it has the right to be arrogant, especially when it is one with those few Taoist laws. Even the headmaster is not sure that he can defeat it. And if it activates the 9 Taoist laws, even the headmaster has to step aside. Saying that, she paused and then said, whether it really recognizes you as its master or not will depend on later. Yi Xian nodded and looked into the depths of the sea of knowledge. He was already mentally prepared. If Xiao Ta was willing to stay, it would be his fortune. If not, it did not matter. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, what plans do you have next? Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Wenxiu, among the primordial race, the evil spirit race, the foreign races, and the Wu kingdom, who do you think we have a chance to rope in? Zhang Wenxiu shook her head. You can't rope in anyone. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? Zhang Wenxiu said softly, they are all existences that teacher once suppressed. To tell you the truth, if it were not for the formation that teacher left behind and the headmaster, the academy would have died 100 times over. Chen Tian is stupid. He can't see through this, so he targeted you. Yi Xian said in a low voice, if you say that, then our current situation is very bad. Zhang Wenxiu said, if I'm not wrong, as long as the spirit-devouring race is not stupid, they will definitely join forces with these forces and the other few of the 6 powerhouses. At this point, she seemed to think of something, and her pupils suddenly shrank. Their goal is the Myriad Dimension Book House, and to get it, they must break the formation of the academy. In other words, if they make a move, it means that they have a way to deal with the formation of the academy and the headmaster. Yi Xian said in a low voice, when do you think they will make a move? Zhang Wenxiu looked up at the sky. It should be soon. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that once the spirit-devouring race made a move, he would also be their target. At this moment, the depths of the ocean of learning suddenly trembled violently, and waves of water rippled in all directions. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the depths of the ocean of learning, where a huge whirlpool had appeared. Zhang Wenxiu said softly, it should be coming out soon. Xiao Ta. Yi Xian looked at the whirlpool and couldn't help but ponder. Is this Xiao Ta still the Xiao Ta I know? At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly rushed up from the depths of the ocean of learning. Boom! In the sky, a powerful force shook from Xiao Ta's body, and the entire sky directly twisted. At the same time, an invisible pressure shook the surroundings. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Ta. He had to admit that Xiao Ta's aura was much stronger than before. In the sky, Xiao Ta trembled violently. At this moment, an afterimage suddenly rushed toward Xiao Ta. Below, Yi Xian's face changed, and he was about to make a move, but Zhang Wenxiu shook his head. No need. Yi Xian stopped and looked at the sky. At this moment, a powerful force suddenly shook from Xiao Ta, and the afterimage was directly shaken away. At this moment, an old man suddenly rushed toward Xiao Ta, and Xiao Ta disappeared. Yi Xian was stunned, and the next moment, his face changed. Xiao Ta had entered the triple-dimensional space. Triple-dimensional space. Only experts of Yi Ling's level could enter this existence. Even Zhang Wenxiu could only rely on one thing. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Only some external objects could enter. This small pagoda had easily entered. In the sky, the old man's face also changed. When he reacted, his whole body had already exploded and turned into nothingness. So powerful. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. This Xiao Ta's strength wasn't just an ordinary kind of terrifying. Moreover, this wasn't Xiao Ta's peak. It should be known that when all 9 Tao laws were gathered, that would be Xiao Ta's peak. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly arrived above Yi Xian's head. Beside Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu slowly clenched his right hand, ready to make a move at any time. Xiao Ta suddenly flew in front of Yi Xian. It trembled, then directly turned into a dim light and entered Yi Xian's chest. Yi Xian was stunned. He opened his palm, and the prison pagoda appeared in his palm. The prison pagoda trembled slightly and gently rubbed against his hand. It was very intimate. At the side, Zhang Wenxiu took a deep look at Yi Xian. She was extremely shocked. She knew how arrogant this Xiao Ta was. Back then, this stupid pagoda didn't recognize anyone other than the prophet. Yet now, it was so intimate with Yi Xian. This wasn't normal. Yi Xian didn't expect that this Xiao Ta would be even closer to him after it recovered its intelligence. Could he really be the legendary heaven's chosen one? Yi Xian smiled and kept the prison pagoda. He looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Miss Wenxiu, thank you. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. You're more mysterious than I thought. This Xiao Ta has already recovered, but the Tao laws in the pagoda haven't been gathered. You have to think of a way to gather all the Tao laws and make them work for you. Only then will you be able to unleash the true power of this Xiao Ta. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. Miss Wenxiu, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave. Zhang Wenxiu nodded. Be careful. Yi Xian replied, I understand. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light and vanished into the horizon. Meanwhile, Zhang Wenxiu was about to turn around and leave. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something, and her expression changed. She was about to give chase when a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of her. The middle-aged man grinned. Miss Wenxiu, please stop. Zhang Wenxiu stared fixedly at the middle-aged man. You want to kill him? The middle-aged man nodded. Yes. Zhang Wenxiu clenched her right fist. The middle-aged man smiled. Unless Miss Wenxiu activates the formation, otherwise, you won't be able to kill me, and you won't be able to leave the academy. Zhang Wenxiu's expression was gloomy. She didn't attack. After a short while, she looked up into the sky with a trace of worry in her eyes. Somewhere high up in the clouds, Yi Ling, who was hunting vengeful spirits, suddenly stopped. Not too far away from her stood a man in white. Li Mubai. Yi Ling looked at Li Mubai. You turned to the Devouring Spirit clan? Li Mubai shook his head. I helped them twice. That's all. Hearing this, Yiling seemed to think of something. Her pupils suddenly shrank. You can't kill me. You're here to stop me. You want to kill him. Li Mubai nodded. Yiling suddenly roared, you all deserve to die. The next moment, she rushed directly toward Li Mubai. In the distance, Li Mubai also disappeared. A white light flashed in the field. Fu Wenzong. On this day, dozens of mysterious killers suddenly rushed into Fu Wenzong and began to assassinate people in Fu Wenzong. Fu Wenzong was shocked. After killing someone, these assassins would retreat, but not long after, they would appear again. In the Rune Palace, Shen Xinghe's face was gloomy. What do they mean? After a moment of silence, Lu Yong seemed to think of something. He said in horror, they are restraining us. Little Grandmaster is in danger. Hearing this, Shen Xinghe's face changed dramatically. Contact Little Grandmaster. Lu Yong hurriedly crushed a voice-transmitting talisman. But soon, his face turned pale. Shen Xinghe looked at Lu Yong. Lu Yong said in a trembling voice, the space in Fu Wenzong has been sealed. We can't contact Little Grandmaster. Shen Xinghe was stunned and then sat down in a chair. End of this chapter. Chapter 920. About an hour after Yi Xian left the Worldwide Academy, he was on his way back to Fu Wenzong when he suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a black robe, had long hair, and carried a zither on his back. Yi Xian glanced around and then opened his palm. A voice-transmitting talisman broke. Soon, he frowned because the voice-transmitting talisman did not send any message. Yi Xian crushed another 2 voice-transmitting talismans, but nothing happened. Yi Xian's face darkened. Yi Ling could not be contacted. Zhang Wenxiu could not be contacted. Fu Wenzong could not be contacted. The Devouring Spirit clan was going to attack him. What should I do? Yi Xian calmed down. He looked at the middle-aged man and said with a smile, are you alone? The middle-aged man shook his head, more than one. As his voice fell, the space around him suddenly trembled. Soon, light curtains suddenly appeared around Yi Xian. These light curtains directly locked the space around Yi Xian. At the same time, behind the middle-aged man, 4 white-robed old men appeared. Outside those light curtains, there was a group of experts wearing white armor and holding long spears. These people's aura locked onto Yi Xian. They were going to besiege him. Yi Xian nodded slightly, more? The man with the zither looked at Yi Xian, is it not enough? Yi Xian smiled, I'm afraid it's not enough. The man with the zither shook his head, we value you enough. As his voice fell, the zither behind him suddenly trembled slightly. The next moment, a green light flashed like a blade and slashed at Yi Xian. Seeing this green light, Yi Xian's pupils shrank. So strong. The person in front of him was only slightly weaker than Zhang Wenxiu. Yi Xian didn't use his body to block it. He opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. Boom! The green light was directly blocked by the World Prison Pagoda, and the World Prison Pagoda was not damaged at all. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boundless sword. This time, Yi Xian didn't kill. Instead, he escaped. With so many people here, he naturally would not choose to fight head-on. Although there was a barrier seal around him, they had overlooked one thing. He had Lian Xian and the Space Dao Law. Sealing barrier? Wasn't that just a joke in front of Lian Xian? Space blockade? Could it seal the Dao Law of space? The moment Yi Xian disappeared, the expression of the man with the zither on his back changed. Stop him. As soon as he finished speaking, the barrier of light in the surroundings suddenly trembled. However, right at this moment, the barrier of light suddenly split apart, and the sealing technique contained within the barrier of light had completely vanished as well. A ray of light flashed in the distant horizon. The man with the zither on his back didn't give chase. Instead, he raised his head and looked towards the horizon. In the horizon, a star had silently appeared at an unknown time, and a beam of light shot down from the star and illuminated the horizon in the distance. That just happened to be where Yi Xian was. Yi Xian was stunned when he was illuminated by the starlight. What the hell is that? He didn't dare think too much about it and raised his speed to its limits. He wanted to flee now. He wanted to flee back to the Worldwide Academy. However, the starlight was like maggots in one's bones, and it shone on him tightly. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared not too far away from him. She wore white armor, had long hair tied into a ponytail, and had a sheathed saber hanging behind her waist. The woman looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian looked at her as well. Both of their expressions were extremely calm. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A boundless sword. Yi Xian didn't hold back. He knew that since she dared to obstruct him, then she was definitely not trash. Suddenly, the woman closed her eyes. When Yi Xian's sword was around 3 m away from her, she suddenly grabbed the hilt of her saber with her right hand. Instant. The moment the saber was drawn, the surroundings suddenly slowed down, and even time seemed to have slowed down at this moment. It wasn't slow. It was the woman's saber that was swift to the extreme. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated. This time, he retreated 1,000 feet. And as soon as he stopped, the clothes in front of his chest directly split open. The skin from his eyebrows to his abdomen directly split open, and blood splattered everywhere. Yi Xian looked up at the woman, his expression incomparably solemn. What a fast saber. This was the fastest saber he had ever seen, and this saber had almost taken his life. If it weren't for the fact that his physical body was strong enough, and if it weren't for his fast reflexes, this saber would have dismembered him. At this time, the man with the zither had arrived, and Yi Xian was once again surrounded. Yi Xian wiped the blood off his face, and soon, his body began to recover. The man with the zither glanced at Yi Xian, then at the woman with the saber not far away. He nodded slightly. Miss Wu. Wu Xingnan. At this time, Xian Tian's voice suddenly rang out in Yi Xian's mind. Divine Master Yi, don't be careless. This woman is the most monstrous genius in Wu country. She reached the Heaven's Fate realm a few years ago, and her saber path has even entered the first layer of the mortal saber realm. She is known as the most monstrous genius in Wu country in the last 10,000 years, and now she is the commander of the undead cavalry. Also, rumor has it that Li Mubai wanted to take her as a disciple, but she rejected him. She said that no one in this world is qualified to be her master. Wu Xingnan. Yi Xian looked at the woman in front of him. Although they had only exchanged one move, he had already tasted her power. Reality proved that the younger generation of the fifth dimension was not weak, it was just that Yi Xian had not met them yet. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and sent a voice transmission. Can you contact the academy and my sister? Xian Tian's replied, the Empress is being held back, and the academy is also being held back. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression sank. He could only rely on himself. In the distance, Wu Xingnan suddenly said, I will fight him. The man with the zither on his back hesitated. Wu Xingnan looked at the man with the zither. Is there a problem? The man with the zither said in a deep voice, it's best if we kill him in one strike. Wu Xingnan ignored the zither man and looked at Yi Xian. Fight me. After saying this, she slowly walked towards Yi Xian. Her right hand was on the hilt of her saber, and she walked very slowly, as if she was taking a stroll. There was not the slightest energy fluctuation around her. In the distance, Yi Xian's left thumb suddenly flicked up. Chi! The executing heaven sword flew out. Boundless sword. The sword was like lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In the distance, Wu Xingnan suddenly pulled out her saber and slashed. This slash directly struck the tip of Yi Xian's sword. Bang! The executing heaven sword flew back, but at this time, Yi Xian appeared in front of Wu Xingnan. He reached out with the executing heaven sword and slashed at Wu Xingnan. Wu Xingnan raised her saber to block, but at this moment, Yi Xian's executing heaven sword turned into a heavy sword, and at this moment, Yi Xian's sword seed's power suddenly soared. Not only that, but the heavy sword also had a extinguished character spirit. The sword smashed down. Bang! Wu Xingnan took a step back, and the space around them directly exploded. At this time, Wu Xingnan suddenly slashed forward with her saber, taking advantage of the momentum to slash at Yi Xian. Yi Xian sheathed his sword to block. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying, but the moment he was sent flying, the heavy sword in his hands suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the executing heaven sword. The executing heaven sword turned into a flying sword and slashed at Wu Xingnan. Wu Xingnan took a step forward and slashed out with her saber, then immediately sheathed it. Bang! The celestial sword was directly stopped in place, but at this time, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her, another heavy sword in his hand. He gripped the heavy sword with both hands and fiercely slashed forward. This slash of the sword had the power to shatter the heavens. Yi Xian's physical strength was extremely strong to begin with, so with this slash of his sword, the surrounding space couldn't withstand it and began to crack apart. Wu Xingnan's eyebrows slightly furrowed. She suddenly pulled out her saber and slashed horizontally at Yi Xian's abdomen. She didn't defend against Yi Xian's slash because she was very confident in her own saber speed. Yi Xian also didn't retreat to defend, and instead slashed down with his saber. Just as Wu Xingnan's saber was half an inch away from Yi Xian's abdomen, a mysterious power suddenly enveloped Wu Xingnan. Sword domain. This suppression directly forced Wu Xingnan's saber to stop. And Yi Xian's sword fell. Bang! Wu Xingnan instantly retreated a few dozen meters, but Yi Xian also retreated rapidly, and his abdomen was still cut open. It wasn't deep, only an inch deep. But without the suppression of the sword domain, it wouldn't just be an inch deep, half of his body would have been cut open. In the distance, Wu Xingnan looked at Yi Xian with a trace of surprise in her eyes. Domain. Yi Xian looked at Wu Xingnan. He had to admit that this woman was really strong, especially her saber, it was too fast. At this time, the man with the zither suddenly said, "Miss Wu, don't forget our purpose." Wu Xingnan pondered for a moment, and then said, "Take my last saber strike." The man with the zither's face sank. "Miss Wu, Exalted Yuan Tian has instructed." Wu Xingnan suddenly looked at the man with the zither. "That's an instruction to your devouring spirit clan." "What, do I have to listen to your devouring spirit clan's orders?" The man with the zither's face was slightly unsightly. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pointed angrily at the man with the zither. "Your devouring spirit clan is shameless. You don't dare to fight alone, but you won't let others fight alone. Do you think Wu Xingnan is as shameless as you?" As he spoke, he looked at Wu Xingnan. "I've long heard that Miss Wu's saber is unparalleled under the heavens. Today, I, Yi Xian, am able to fight Miss Wu. Even if I die, it will be worth it. Come, Miss Wu, please make your move." "You." Not far away, the man with the zither stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, don't play any tricks. No one can save you today." Yi Xian spat at the man with the zither. "Bah. Even if I, Yi Xian, die, I will die at the hands of a true expert, not at the hands of a group of despicable villains like you." As he spoke, he looked at Wu Xingnan. "Miss Wu, please make your move. I, Yi Xian, will take your saber." Wu Xingnan sized up Yi Xian and nodded. "You've got guts. If we weren't enemies, I'd be willing to make friends with you." As she spoke, she was about to make her move, but Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Wu, if I take your saber, what will you do?" Hearing Wu Xingnan's words, the man with the zither's face suddenly sank. Why did they suddenly feel sympathy for each other? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Wu Xingnan frowned slightly. She hadn't thought about this problem. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Wu, how about this? If I take your saber, you can't attack me again today. If I can't, I'll be buried under your saber. What do you think? No. The man with the zither suddenly said, Miss Wu, you can't agree with him. He has bad intentions. Yi Xian suddenly said, What, you don't believe in Miss Wu's strength? The man with the zither glared at Yi Xian, but at this time, Wu Xingnan suddenly said, I know you're playing tricks, but I promise you. Because killing you today is not in line with my style. If you die with my saber, everything will be over. If you don't die, I won't attack you again today. As she spoke, her right hand grasped the hilt of the long saber at her waist. Are you ready? P.S. I want to ask for votes, but I don't know how to ask. Chapter 921. Yi Xian held the executing heaven sword in his right hand and nodded. I'm ready. In the distance, Wu Xingnan nodded slightly. She suddenly drew her saber. The saber slashed out soundlessly, without the slightest fluctuation of energy. Fast. The core of this saber strike was speed. It was fast to the extreme. At the instant that this saber strike appeared, the entire world seemed to slow down. At the instant that Wu Xingnan drew her saber, a mysterious force suddenly appeared around 3 meters in front of Yi Xian. Sword domain. He could have used the World Prison Pagoda to resist Wu Xingnan's saber strike. He knew that Wu Xingnan was very strong, but it was absolutely impossible for her saber strike to break through the World Prison Pagoda. However, he didn't do that. Wu Xingnan had her pride, but so did he, Yi Xian. Amongst the younger generation, who did he, Yi Xian, need to fear? He feared no one. Wasn't it just a single saber strike? At the instant that the sword domain appeared, a saber energy arrived. Chi! A sharp tearing sound resounded. After this extremely fast saber strike entered Yi Xian's sword domain, its speed slowed down at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. It was forcefully suppressed by the sword domain. The saber energy grew slower and slower. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's countenance had turned abnormally pale. The strength of this saber strike was too strong. Even though he'd used the sword domain to suppress this saber energy, he'd endured a great deal of force as well. When the saber energy was half an inch away from his chest, it stopped. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the distant Wu Xingnan. Wu Xingnan spoke softly, What an impressive sword domain. Yi Xian said, How about you take a strike from me? Wu Xingnan nodded, All right. Yi Xian suddenly vanished. A boundless sword. In the distance, Wu Xingnan drew her saber and slashed. The sword light shattered. However, Yi Xian had vanished. The zither man's expression changed drastically when he saw this scene. He's fled. Stop him. Wu Xingnan turned her head and looked to her right. At the end of the horizon, she saw Yi Xian. That was because the starlight had been firmly enveloping Yi Xian. At this distance, if she used her saber, she could force Yi Xian to stop. Because Yi Xian wasn't as fast as her. However, she did not draw her saber. Wu Xingnan turned around and left. Seeing this, the zither-wielding man's face darkened. He stood in front of Wu Xingnan and said, Miss Wu, that Yi Xian is someone from the Azura Divine Kingdom. We are mortal enemies with your Wu country. Wu Xingnan calmly said, A powerful enemy deserves respect. The zither-wielding man glanced at Wu Xingnan. Does Miss Wu know how great of a price we paid to kill this man? Wu Xingnan pointed into the distance. He has already escaped to the Worldwide Academy. If you go after him now, you should still be able to make it in time. The man with the zither didn't say anything else. He turned around and chased after them. After the zither-wielding man and the others left, an old man suddenly appeared not too far away from Wu Xingnan. The old man bowed slightly and said, Your Highness. Wu Xingnan said in a light voice, I said that teacher doesn't need to be so polite in front of me. The old man shook his head. These are the rules. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. Wu Xingnan didn't bother about this anymore. She looked up into the sky and said softly, the devouring spirit race is plotting something big. The old man hesitated for a moment and said, Your Highness deliberately let Yi Xian go? Wu Xingnan nodded. The old man smiled and said, Why? Wu Xingnan said in a light voice, Li Mubai can't kill the empress. If I kill Yi Xian, then the empress will surely retaliate against my Wu country. Although my Wu country isn't afraid of her, there is no need for us to do so. Because if the empress retaliates against my Wu country, then the devouring spirit race will be the happiest. The old man nodded. This time, the devouring spirit race said that their goal is that study house. But from the looks of it, their plan is far more than that. As he said this, he looked in the direction of the Worldwide Academy with a complicated look in his eyes. In the past, who dared to despise the Worldwide Academy? But now, the devouring spirit race is openly targeting that study house. Wu Xingnan said, Prosperity leads to decline. The old man nodded. Although the academy is not as good as it used to be, I think the devouring spirit race won't dare to destroy the Worldwide Academy. After all, the headmaster is still there, and there is a great array in the academy. Great slaying array. The first array of the five-dimensional universe. Even the 6 super powerhouses of the present world wouldn't dare to say that they could withstand this slash, because it was left by the prophet. Wu Xingnan looked in the direction of the Worldwide Academy and said softly, We can't let the Shura country rise, and we can't let Yi Xian and the Worldwide Academy open that study house. But, we can't let the devouring spirit race use us as a tool. Sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. The old man nodded, I understand. But, what if the devouring spirit race really destroys the academy and Yi Xian? Wu Xingnan said softly, If they can kill the Shura Empress and the headmaster, and break that great array, then the ones who will die will be us. Teacher, use all the forces of our country to investigate the devouring spirit race. I want to know how many powerhouses they left behind. We must find out their true strength. The old man nodded slightly and left quietly. Wu Xingnan turned and left. The direction she was walking in was the direction of the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian ran all the way, and soon, he returned to the Worldwide Academy. He could only return to the Worldwide Academy, because he was too far away from Fu Wenzong. When he returned to the Worldwide Academy, Yi Xian's face darkened. At this moment, above the academy, a middle-aged man was confronting Zhang Wenxiu. When he saw Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu's face darkened. It was not a good thing to see Yi Xian in the Worldwide Academy at this time. Yi Xian glanced at the middle-aged man, then looked at Zhang Wenxiu, and grinned, Miss Wenxiu, I want to read. Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. Can't you just say that you are being hunted and want to find a place to take refuge? Yi Xian, not far away, the middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian, I didn't expect you to escape. Yi Xian smiled, disappointed. The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled, a little bit. At this time, the man with the zither and the devouring spirit race experts appeared in the sky above the Worldwide Academy. The experts of the Worldwide Academy also appeared, but they were far inferior to the devouring spirit race in terms of quality and quantity. The main reason was that some of the experts of the Worldwide Academy did not come back. In the sky, the middle-aged man looked at Zhang Wenxiu and smiled, Miss Wenxiu, we only have one goal today, and that is to kill this Yi Xian. If you don't attack, we will leave immediately after killing him. We will keep our word. Zhang Wenxiu smiled, Yuan Sheng, can't you use your brain? If you kill him, won't the Worldwide Academy be next? Can you not make me think that the devouring spirit race is a group of retards? Yi Xian suddenly gave a thumbs up, good scolding. Good scolding, good scolding. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian coldly, you shut up. Yi Xian quickly shut up. He could see that this woman was in a bad mood, so it was better not to provoke her. After all, he had nowhere to go now, so he could only stay in the Worldwide Academy. In the sky, the middle-aged man named Yuan Xing suddenly smiled. Since Miss Wenxiu wants to protect this Yi Xian, then the devouring spirit race will offend you today. As his voice fell, 4 white-robed old men appeared behind him, and no one knew what they were saying. Soon, the sky suddenly darkened, and in the depths of the starry sky, 7 stars suddenly appeared. Array. Yi Xian's face changed. The devouring spirit race has a lot of arrays. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked, Miss Lian Qian, do you have any Tao principles related to arrays? Lian Qian said, yes. Yi Xian quickly asked, who? Lian Qian said, the 8th floor. She is very good at arrays. Half of the big arrays in the academy were completed by her. She is very powerful. Yi Xian asked, where is she now? Lian Qian said, I don't know. Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, in the starry sky, 7 bright starlight beams suddenly burst out from the 7 stars. These 7 light beams fell straight down from the starry sky, and a powerful pressure directly enveloped the entire worldwide academy. Yi Xian's face changed. This array is stronger than I thought. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu not far away, but Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. Go out. Boom. In the depths of the academy below, a golden ancient book suddenly flew out. In the sky, the golden ancient book suddenly flipped open, and tiny golden ancient characters flew out ceaselessly from its pages. In an instant, these golden ancient characters formed numerous thick golden shields that blocked the sky above the Myriad Dimension Academy. At this time, the starlight fell. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the sky above the entire Myriad Dimension Academy, numerous explosions resounded incessantly, and the golden shield started to tremble violently. Gradually, the golden shield actually started to crack. Seeing this, the faces of countless worldwide academy experts suddenly changed. The array was about to break. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Give me the heaven punishment brush. Yi Xian did not hesitate and directly handed the heaven punishment brush to Zhang Wenxiu. As soon as Zhang Wenxiu grasped the heaven punishment brush, the golden shield in the sky exploded. At this time, 7 beams of starlight fell straight down, and Zhang Wenxiu suddenly swung the brush. Defend. Boom. An enormous black shield suddenly stretched across the sky above the entire Myriad Dimension Academy, and when the 7 rays of starlight descended onto the enormous black shield, it trembled violently before directly cracking apart. However, in the next moment, 7 rays of dazzling starlight suddenly erupted from the enormous black shield, and these 7 rays of starlight shot into the sky and shot into the depths of the starry sky before finally blasting onto the 7 stars. Rumble. The 7 stars shook violently, but they did not disappear. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly shot up into the sky, and in her hand, a lightning spear quietly condensed. In the distance, Yuan Xing suddenly said, "Stop her." As soon as he finished speaking, the man with the zither appeared in front of Zhang Wenxiu. He strummed the zither with both hands, and strands of strange energy surged like waves towards Zhang Wenxiu. A ferocious smile curled up the corners of Zhang Wenxiu's mouth. She swung her spear, and a wave of lightning shook out. Bang! The strange energy vanished without a trace. At the same time, Yuan Sheng was blasted back. Zhang Wenxiu looked at the nearest star. She was about to swing her spear when the 7 stars suddenly shook violently. In the next moment, 7 beams of starlight shot out from the depths of the starry sky, and their target was Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu's expression changed when she saw this, and she swung her spear again. Rumble. Zhang Wenxiu fell from the sky, and it didn't take long for her to fall into the worldwide academy. Zhang Wenxiu raised her head and looked over. In the sky, the 7 stars had suddenly converged together and transformed into a star sword. At the instant this sword appeared, the entire starry sky started to seethe, and the space in the sky above the Myriad Dimension Academy instantly became illusory. It couldn't withstand the power of this sword of stars. Zhang Wenxiu's expression turned ferocious, and she was about to attack again. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly sent her a voice transmission. Let me do it, let me do it, let me do it. Zhang Wenxiu. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.